who from those countries that have come and had their education here in India. No matter how much your university promotes, becomes aggressive in its marketing strategies, that really doesn't help. An international student always asks his fellow student, either a relative or a friend in that country, to which university he or she should go if he's coming to India. Therefore, I think the experience of international students when they are on your campus is of paramount importance. The experience of students, as I said, is not only on the university campus, the experience with their fellow peers, the experience with their teachers, how understanding the teachers are, because foreign students who come to us primarily come from Afro-Asian countries and from countries where probably the education system may not be as as of the standard that the Indian education system is. And therefore, one has to understand that these international students definitely need English language training before they join a program. But more importantly, even after they join the program, they require some kind of remedial teaching or some kind of mentoring help from the teachers. The second is the fellow students or the peers. The peers in the university campus need to understand that these are students who come from faraway places, and it would be great if universities can assign a buddy, like we do at Symbiosis, a buddy system where one Indian student gets attached to a foreign student, so that the foreign student journey, at least during the entry, when they come into the university, when they come into the new city, is much smoother than otherwise. Because sometimes, coming to a foreign campus or a foreign university campus becomes like a cultural shock for that foreign student, and he may want to run away. The third is sensitizing the citizens of that city. In Pune, when Dr. Muzumdar, the founder of Symbiosis, started Symbiosis, Pune citizens were averse to students who came typically from African countries. They did not like Black African students staying in their complexes or, even roaming around on their streets or sitting in the buses. So, there was an apathy towards these African students. And whereas the education provided by Ferguson College or Film Institute of India or any other college in Pune University was great, but still African students felt uncomfortable, so much so that they wanted to run back. And therefore, I think sensitizing our own citizens of the city to the needs and demands of foreign students is very important. And I think universities also have to play a role in doing this. So having attracted foreign students or having foreign students, you also have to change some of the infrastructure of your campuses, whether it is, hostel rooms where maybe some pantry has to be provided, or cafeterias that serve some kind of cuisine other than Indian cuisine, because again, these are soft things that also are important other than, the teaching and education in classrooms. This is about the experience of foreign students, and this experience, good experience that they carry back to their home countries, will bring in more and more foreign students from that country. So at Symbiosis, we treat foreign students as our unofficial ambassadors of goodwill. The second thing is about boards of sustainable partnerships. Partnerships, as just now Balwinder ji spoke about, and even Santosh said that Pune University or MIT University has several partnerships. So also with Symbiosis International University that has collaborations with several, almost 80 plus universities. But how many of them are active partnerships? That is what we need to check. Because MOUs signed on papers makes no sense. It's best not to sign MOUs, not to officially collaborate, but begin the collaborations either through student exchange or faculty exchange. And I think faculty are the best people to start the collaborations, from, which means that there should be a bottoms-up approach than a top-down approach for internationalization. And for sustainable partnerships, it is very, very critical that faculty-to-faculty interaction between two universities, Indian and foreign, happens. Only then there will be successful partnerships. These partnerships could be teaching partnerships like COIL, Collaborative Online International Learning, or for that matter, research partnerships, which is many of us see a lot of research partnerships happening now, Government of India supporting Spark schemes, etc. The next point is, of course, about role of internationalization in world-class universities. As I said earlier, all these 4 points are integrated. If you really want our universities to become world-class, then internationalization is one of the parameters that is very, very strongly used even in rankings. You look at the inbound number of students that come in, how many of our students get to go abroad. It is equally important that our Indian students get to go abroad, and it should not be just the elite students who come from upper classes that get to travel abroad, but the universities should have some funds, like we have at Symbiosis, a global immersion fund, where talented Indian students who cannot afford to go abroad for a semester exchange or for a short duration are supported by the university to go abroad, because the more they experience, global experience that our Indian students get is as important as what foreign students get when they come to India. And this is again held as one of the parameters of rankings. Sorry. Likewise, faculty exchange, whether it is for research or for teaching. Like at Symbiosis, we do a lot of collaborative online international learning. We do a lot of co-teaching, also virtual teaching, where two students from different regions of the world sit together in a class, and two faculty members from different regions of the world teach a particular subject. And this is one of the most enjoyable experiences to both students as well as faculty. And this teaching then leads to further enhancement of joint research, as I said, whether it is through government-funded schemes or even internal funding that the university can provide. And all this will then lead to actually the university coming into rankings, because the research obviously increases, the number of publications increases. Likewise, the internationalization process helps in faculty and student mobility. And therefore, obviously, this leads to your university at least getting into some rankings of QS or Times Higher Education, and therefore climbing up the ladder to becoming world-class universities. So I'll stop here and then maybe add on to the further.
Thank you, Dr. Vidya Ayurvedakar. The second speaker will be Professor C. Rajkumar, Vice Chancellor of O.P. Jindal Global University, Sonipat.
A very good afternoon to all of you. First of all, I would like to congratulate the Association of Indian Universities, as well as the University of Science and Technology, Meghalaya, the dynamic leadership of the President and the Secretary General of the AIU, and of course, the founder and the Vice Chancellor of the University of Science and Technology for really hosting a truly remarkable, massive conference of this magnitude. I also want to recognize the presence of two of our distinguished chairpersons, Dr. Shukla as well as Dr. Pandit. This session is obviously a very important session for a number of reasons. First of all, I think if there's one aspect where there is a higher degree of consensus, both with regard to regulatory bodies, government, as well as stakeholders, including universities, is the need for promoting internationalization. And here, I don't plan to talk about the entry of foreign universities in India, but the four aspects of internationalization that has been outlined by the organizers for us to reflect upon. But I must begin by saying that there is a very important threshold challenge with regard to internationalization, and there is no better forum than this to talk about it. India has 1,000 universities, and I believe more than half of the vice chancellors are present here. The less talked about aspect of challenge of internationalization is the fact that any form of internationalization requires substantial resources. And I'm not talking about internationalization at home or virtual classrooms and things like that. The idea of internationalization in which involves somebody taking a plane to some other country, or and doing something physically in another place, or somebody taking a plane and coming here. So the question that we have before us is that, to what extent we can make internationalization more democratic, more inclusive, more accessible, is a challenge that we need to ask for the larger Indian higher education institutions. Let me quickly identify some of the important issues in these four sub-themes. First sub-theme is experience of hosting international students on the campus. Dr. Ayurvedakar had identified some of those issues. The most important part of this challenge is that to what extent a university has bandwidth to promote internationalization is a very serious question. The reality is, while we can be happy about the numbers that we have, approximately 50,000 international students are in India, but India is not seen as a destination for higher education. There are very many countries. Australia is a good example. We have Matthew here, and he can tell you how Australia became a global destination for higher education. The data shows for itself, United States and Europe, UK, of course, Australia, New Zealand, And even a country like China, for the last 3 decades, have systematically developed an ecosystem which will attract international students. And that's something that we need to do. There are, of course, pockets of institutions which does have very strong internationalization. But my larger question and concern remains that how do we make a far greater number of Indian institutions to have that ecosystem to host international students? This has a direct bearing on issues that are connected to curriculum and course structure and credit transfers and pedagogy and ability to have English language courses to be taught at the highest level and the quality of faculty. All those things have a bearing on it. But there are also non-academic aspects such as safety and security and well-being of international students, and also a very active, international office, which is also one of the things that we plan to talk about. All these things are so critical. But an equally important aspect is the question of something that we should talk loud here, is the issue of visas as well as FRRO registration. For all of us who host international students and international faculty, we can be candid in saying that the nightmarish part of hosting international students and international faculty is the complex and labyrinth procedures that are involved in both obtaining visas within the time frame and to have a very viable FRRO registration process. Despite numerous efforts, this remains a very, very challenging task, and we need to do something about it. Since there are only a few minutes, I want to quickly talk about sustainable international partnerships. Now, this is such an important issue because, what ends up happening today, especially with regard to developed countries, is that a large number of Indian students are keen to go for student exchange programs, and that's the case with almost every Indian university who wants to do it. But unfortunately, an equal number of students are not prepared to come from those countries. So we need to become imaginative, more creative for it to become sustainable. One of the ways by which we can, because there is a reluctance on the part of international students to come and spend a semester in India, while Indian students are happy to do that. Part of the way by which it can be resolved is to promote short-term India immersion programs, something that few institutions have tried and it has worked out well. We really need to think in terms of the changing dimensions of internationalization that is happening, in which more and more students, especially from the United States and Canada and other parts of the Western world, are graduating with significant amounts of debt. Their ability to travel internationally compromises their ability to pursue internships, and in that process, prepare them for jobs. So the luxury of a one semester or more type of international experiences, something that used to be the case before, is no longer there. So then we in India and Indian universities need to prepare for reimagining internationalization. The third aspect is something that we all know, which is that there is a very strong case for having a comprehensive international office, which essentially is involved in looking at international partnerships. Now, here I want to say that most of our institutions are naturally obsessed with the West, especially the developed world. But I would strongly encourage many of our universities to look east, including countries like Indonesia, Malaysia, South Korea, Taipei, of course, Cambodia, and Vietnam. These countries are ready and willing and are actively engaged and wanting to work with India. The affordability factor is something that can be met much easily in these countries. Of course, there is a mindset problem in India, whereby Indian parents are keen to send their kids mostly to US and Europe and UK and other parts of the Western world, as opposed to Southeast Asia, let alone Middle East, Africa, and Latin America. The fourth aspect that I want to spend a couple of minutes on that is that role of internationalization in building world-class universities. Now, this is so important because universities are intrinsically international institutions. The remarkable thing about any university is that it is expected to transcend all boundaries. Universality is part of its intrinsic DNA. So internationalization ought to come for it quite naturally, but unfortunately, that's not the case. Till recently, most Indian institutions will not have been in a position to hire faculty members, and that has, of course, changed in more recent times. We are very fortunate from the very beginning. We called ourselves OP Jindal Global University, but we also decided very early on that we'll be recruiting international faculty. So I'm happy to report to all of you that we have over 1,100 full-time faculty members, and they come from 49 countries in the world. These people who come from 49 countries in the world are full-time faculty members who live and work in Sonipat, Haryana. And you can imagine the extraordinary efforts that we as an institution need to do with a view to attracting them, but more importantly, to go through the process of visas and FRRO process, but also to create an institutional ecosystem on campus that will enable them to live and work and enjoy their experience. We have 10,000 plus students, and they come from 45 countries in the world, and the same thing holds true for them as well. So in a way, the point I want to draw is that if you are expecting to be a world-class university, if your aspiration is to promote a world-class education, then it is important for Indian students to be part of an international ecosystem in which they are able to meet, interact, engage, and study, work, live with students from different parts of the world. I, of course, did 2 degrees from India, Loyola College Madras and University of Delhi. Loyola College Madras was entirely, at best at that time, from Tamil Nadu and southern parts of Tamil Nadu. I hardly met anybody outside Tamil Nadu. When I came to Delhi University, for the first time, I met students from across India, very few students from abroad, although there were a few students. But then my first exposure to a large number of international students was when I studied at Oxford and Harvard. And I can tell you that in Oxford and Harvard, in both those institutions, my class had 150 students at Harvard, and they were from 84 countries in the world. I met for the first time people from countries who had simply did not even know they existed in that sense. So, and that enormously, opened up my mind and appreciated different cultures and the extraordinary diversity and complexity of the world that which we live in. So in some ways, we need to do more to promote internationalization. But one of the things that we need to argue vociferously, and hopefully with AIU support, is to develop more flexible and easy visa procedures and processes so that the students and faculty who come to India are made to feel more welcome. An equally important part of it is that India should be promoted as a global destination for higher education. I think this is something that people don't realize, that we are able to provide reasonably good quality education at a significantly low price. India is a global leader for frugal innovation, and the fact that we only spent $75 million for a successful mission to Mars, while the Hollywood movie Gravity had to spend over $100 million. This is a good example of what India can do and provide leadership in frugal innovation. And in that process, make international opportunities available for a large number of students from other parts of the world to come and study in India for a very, very low cost compared to any other developed society. So with those words, I want to once again thank AIU and USTM for this opportunity. And I look forward to taking some questions. I need to rush at 4 o'clock, but I'll remain here till then. Thank you.
I thank you, Professor Rajkumar. Professor Kalpan Trivedi, Vice Provost for Global Affairs and Director, International Programs Office, University of Massachusetts, Amherst.
A very good morning to all of you. It's rather dark and early here on the East Coast of the United States, so good afternoon to you where you are. I think my computer is unfortunately as bleary-eyed as I am, and I can't seem to get my virtual background to work. So you have to gaze upon my home office / kitchen while I talk to you this morning. I've been really excited to hear some of the things that have been said by my fellow panelists, particularly as regards the development of sustainable partnerships, some of the practical governmental implications around how do you think about a national strategy for marketing a destination, for removing the roadblocks from visas and so on. And so I'm very happy and delighted to be able to address the AIU conference today about thinking about the role that campus international offices have to play in making some of these things a concrete reality. I'm trying to condense my thoughts a little bit as we have about 7 minutes, and I hope I'll be both coherent and succinct at the same time. So I like to think about sort of campus international offices in sort of 3 buckets. One is to be thinking around what is their remit, right? What responsibility is the campus international office being given? And the most successful international offices are the ones that are the most comprehensive. In other words, don't give them just a piece of the work, but allow them to be over both sort of the international student enterprise, but also your students who are seeking international experiences, internationalization of the curriculum, the administration of faculty international opportunities, the creation, nurturing of sustainable partnerships. Sustainable international operation requires a comprehensive international operation. So be very thoughtful, I think, as leaders of universities yourself, in terms of bringing together all of these different roles under one comprehensive international office. So in addition to the responsibility, I would say the second piece that I like to think about is the reporting, which is to say, what is the structure of your international office and where are you going to put it? Oftentimes, I think we see that the international offices that are not very successful at promoting their campuses' objectives at international activities and partnerships are the ones that are, to use a sort of sports analogy, buried in the depth chart a little bit. So you want your director of international office and your international office to sit prominently within the campus's administrative infrastructure. So for instance, as a vice provost, I report directly to the vice chancellor for academic affairs, which is in the senior level administration of the university. And I think that's where you want to have your international office be placed, as one of the primary reporting units to the leadership of the university. This will give the director or the head of your international office, whatever title you decide to give them, the visibility and also, I think, the bully pulpit that they need to be talking on an equal footing with deans and heads of other units. If the international office is perceived as not having that support from senior leadership, as not having that direct access to senior leadership, then it's often difficult for the international office to meet its goals, to meet the campus's goals, really, because they're not able to speak with the authority of the vice chancellor. They're not able to speak with the authority of the senior leadership. So in addition to sort of the responsibilities that I mentioned, sort of the first bucket that I like to think about, the reporting structure, the second bucket, I think is equally important to create a successful international office. The third bucket I would mention is the resources for the international office. So if you're going to have a comprehensive international office that does a lot of things, you need to resource it appropriately, give it the correct sort of funding lines, give it the correct amount of resources that it needs, both to do the work on campus, but also to be part of the professional community that the international offices and international officers around the world are a part of. You want them to have the appropriate number of staff. You want them to have access to the right data systems. You want them to have the right kinds of equipment, but you also want them to be able to have the resources to fund on-campus initiatives that can catalyze and that can encourage international participation and partnership. So in other words, if you're looking to get more students overseas from India, and our first speaker talked about how we don't really only want elite students to participate in study abroad opportunities. And I think that's as much a concern in the US or in other parts of the world as it is in India. Then you want to make sure that your international office has the opportunity to subsidize these amazing transformative opportunities for your students by creating a pot of money that they can use for scholarships. You want the international office to have some money that it can use with faculty to give them short-term travel grants, to enable them to visit foreign partners, to develop agreements, to develop articulation arrangements of courses, of course structures. So your international office needs those resources to be able to do the work effectively that you want it to do. And equally, it's important, I think, it needs resources for its own development and professional development. You want your staff, and particularly your senior level folks in the international office, to be engaged with international bodies like NAFSA or the API, the Association, the Asia Pacific Association of International Education, which just had its very successful conference in Bangkok last week, to be able to go to these conferences, to have conversations with colleagues, to have, to be able to attend courses, look at sort of opportunities for upskilling. And without those resources, again, you'd be sort of hobbling the international office in terms of how you would want it to perform. I was going to spend, I'm at already about 6.5 minutes here, and I think our chairperson mentioned 7 minutes. So I'm just going to wrap up very quickly by saying one last thing, which is make sure that you, as you're putting your international office together, there's often a temptation to sort of put a famous faculty member or a previous dean in charge of the international office. And I would say resist that urge and look for a practitioner. Look for someone who is active in international circles, who's done a lot of travel, who's built a lot of partnerships, and who's built sustainable partnerships, not just MOUs that they have signed, but that they have a track record of having done the work. That is the right person to lead your international office. And I'll just stop there in the interest of time, and happy to take questions as things develop.
Thank you, Professor Trivedi. I now request Mr. Matthew Johnston, Minister Counselor, South Asia, Australian Government, Australian High Commission, India.
Well, thank you very much, and good afternoon and good morning to our colleague there in the United States. Let me please open by saying what a great pleasure and privilege it is to be here today in Meghalaya and to be here with these esteemed panelists. I feel very humbled to be among you all, and very happy to be here and to be on a panel with such eminent minds here in India. I'm only going to focus on two of the subtopics listed for discussion in this session, and probably one of them more than the other. The reason for that is I'm a government official. I'm an education diplomat that works at the Australian High Commission. Australia is a little bit unusual in our diplomatic footprint abroad, in that we send from line agencies or departments like education or agriculture or others, diplomats abroad. So we are specialists. We focus, we live and breathe education. And in my role, we live and breathe internationalization. So when I want to talk today about modes for sustainable partnerships, what is a sustainable partnership? How do you know your partnership is sustainable? And what kind of tools could you put in place to maybe monitor these things and really take those partnerships to a deeper level? These are just some reflections from my position in a government body. And I'll touch a little bit on the role of internationalization in creating high quality higher education. I'm going to talk about this from the perspective of government. So Australia and India are strategic partners across all aspects of our relationship together, our diplomatic relationship, whether that be trade, economics, political, everything. I like to say that education is the key part of that, and I do believe that it is, because it really drives our people-to-people connections. And as Dr. Vidya was talking about before, those alumni and those stories between students and families and those experiences are the things that really make a difference in terms of building up your international student cohort. But in particular in education, we have quite a well-established and comprehensive bilateral policy architecture, to use the jargon, between the governments of Australia and India. We have a bilateral ministerial forum focused on education and skilling. This has been in place for over 10 years. We have recently concluded a comprehensive, mutually beneficial and equal qualifications recognition agreement for all levels of qualification, both in Australia and India, regardless of the university. As long as the university in either Australia or India or vocational college or other college is regulated by each of those countries' appropriate regulator, we are, both governments, encouraging our institutions to recognise these qualifications. Why is this important? Well, this is important for mobility, not just for Indian students coming to Australia, but as Professor Kumar said, there are a significant number that do want to study with Australian universities. But it also makes easier that connection for diaspora, for second generation Indian students who want to come back and get an experience of Indian culture, really driving Australian students to think about India as a partnership for their qualification. We recently hosted my minister, Minister Jason Clare, here in India. He met with his counterpart, and to say that their relationship is warm and a friendship is underdone, I think, and understated. All of these things are really important because it signals to institutions that the governments of both of our countries, particularly with regards to education, see value in collaborating, see value in genuine partnerships that are deep, and we can put in place tools and mechanisms like qualifications recognition and a number of other tools to help support the higher education institutions of both countries to partner with each other and to internationalize. So what does a sustainable partnership look like? I was really thinking about this and sort of thinking about some of those quite successful partnerships that exist between universities of both of our countries, and trying to think about, well, what aspects of those really make them successful and sustainable and long-term. For me, my concept of a sustainable and successful partnership is one that is deep and that is multifaceted. It might be faculty and student exchange, but it may also be coupled with that, commencement of or deepening of research collaboration. It may be opportunities for delivering guest lectures through blended mode. The NEP is opening up opportunities for dual and joint programs. Some of these sorts of things are deepening the relationship, and that deepening of relationship between institutions, I think, is what makes these partnerships sustainable and give you platforms to do more and to do more align with both countries' strategies, but also your institutional strategies. For me, and I think for Australia, and in terms of Professor Kumar's point about the evolution of Australia's attractiveness as an international destination for students, it is about putting the student at the centre. Having partnerships that are actually about the student, that are giving students the opportunities they want. And we know what students want in both countries due to the NARC survey, due to our own regulatory surveys in Australia. They want practical experience, they want relevant qualifications for employability. They want to give them opportunities to become global citizens and to do multiple things with their lives over time. So really focusing in on, well, what does the student want, and putting the student at the center, I think is one way of determining whether a partnership will be sustainable. Because ultimately, when you execute an MOU or some sort of arrangement, if students don't come, you have to kind of ask yourself, why is it happening? So I think something like that, thinking about the student at the core of what you're doing in your partnerships really makes a difference. And our regulatory system in Australia for international students, which is one of the things that makes us attractive as a destination, really puts the student at the centre. We're one of the only countries in the world with consumer protections for students who want to come and study with us. And we're one of the only countries in the world with federal government legislation that is enacted by regulators and by complaint handling bodies to protect students' interests and safety. So that's sort of adding to what the speakers have already been talking about in terms of that experience for students on your campus. Government has a role to play in stimulating some of these things, as some of our panelists have already said. I might just touch on quickly some of the more practical elements you can look at in terms of sustainable partnerships. Our regulator, TEXA, which would be the equivalent for UGC and AICTE, publishes a toolkit on transnational education. It's very Australia-centric and it's very, focused on that content. But I was looking at it before, and it has a life cycle for agreements, for review points, for that partners can use together to judge whether something has been successful. Building in some of these feedback loops, setting yourself very concrete KPIs, and maybe even starting small and having small wins as you move along with your partnerships are the things that could help with making a partnership sustainable. Having fewer partnerships that are deeper, as I said earlier, is another way of making something more sustainable and focused between institutions. And being very specific on the purpose of the partnership, I think, is also really key. The other thing that I think is really useful to think about in internationalization are what are the tools we use for internationalization. So we've talked a bit about the internationalization of curriculum. There are very good tools and methodologies, some by some very eminent Australian academics, if I can plug my country, who have developed a really good practical framework for how you do internationalization of the curriculum. Ultimately, what we want to see in terms of our bilateral government engagement here in India, and what we encourage Australian universities to do, is to translate and to establish partnerships that internationalize curriculum both ways. Because there's been a number of studies which show that internationalized curriculum enhances student experience and increases the quality of higher education systems. We very much saw that in Australia, which I think you could say initially, the international education sector developed somewhat organically to the point where then a number of big things changed that also enhanced the experience for Australian domestic students as well. The implementation of some of our regulators more than sort of 15 or so, 20 years ago, I think is one such example that really has increased and embedded and helped to bed down internationalization in everyday curriculum for students. So in summary, what are the sorts of things I think that really matter in terms of driving internationalization for higher quality, but also sustainable partnerships? In our experience, in the Australia-India experience, government-to-government relationships and focus does work and helps clear away barriers for institutional collaboration. Secondly, institutional collaboration and institutions should be supported with tools and evidence to really evaluate their partnerships and to feel emboldened to be creative and innovative with your partnerships for the benefit of students. So this is my thoughts on these two key areas of the topic. I could probably talk much longer, and I'm sticking around tonight, so happy to have conversations with those of you who are here as well, because this is a real passion of mine. And so thank you very much for the opportunity to address you all. Thank you, AIU, for the invitation.
Thank you so much. I just want to ask the organizers, how much more time do we have? Interaction, and then we can conclude, right? Okay. Yes, sir. Please hand the mic to.
Thank you. My question is to Mr. Matthew. Congratulations. The mutual recognition of Indian and Australian degrees really means a lot. And just a few days back, the Australian Education Minister in Parliament responded to the question as to how significant this Indo-Australian relationship agreement was. The only area of concern that I have is this mutual recognition of degrees is restricted to non-professional programs. Engineering, medicine, and law is outside the ambit of this mutual recognition. I can understand law and medicine requires more a geographical context because of the nature of subject it is as a profession. But what are the challenges that you see, and how do we overcome to make sure that engineering degrees also are mutually recognized between India and Australia, considering the fact that even the degree programs in Australia, 35% of the students studying in Australia are international students. So as Raj said, it's globally, that's the largest proportion of international students studying in an international soil. Maximum is in Australia. So my name is Vaidya Subramaniam. I am from Shastra University.
Yeah. Are you going to respond or?
Please collect all the.
Yeah. Madam, this is Professor Nagaraju. Just first about the sessions at AIU. most of the panelists might be feeling that, 6.5 minutes or 7 minutes is too short for what they want to express from that side. And from this side, we feel that, we haven't had enough from the panel. So I think maybe a look at the panels could be. Yeah. Second thing is, right in the morning, the president told about level playing fields, and now Professor Rajkumar told about, threshold challenges. Two particular factors which could be discussed is when we are talking about experience of handholding about the foreign students and all that, only few universities in India, particularly those situated in metros, have that experience. Second, the resource centers that a university should have. How many universities can afford to have that kind of resources where they can take whatever problems they have with regard to the foreign students? The third one is curriculum. I think our guest from Australia has said about the curriculum, internationalization of curriculum. How many universities in India have that kind of openness as far as curriculum is concerned, which is at the level of international? Thank you. Thank you very much.
I am Vishnukant from Rural University, Gadag. My question is regarding the parity of skill qualification framework which has been done in India, but that has been done in Australia. What about other countries to have an effective international engagement? Thank you.
So, very good afternoon to everyone present over here. I am Doipayon, an assistant professor at the Department of Political Science at USTM here. So I have a short comment followed by a question which is open to anyone on the dais. So Professor Rajkumar was talking about the role of student visas and the role of the Foreign Regional Registration Organization, the FRROs, in promoting the internationalization of education. So I think as a university lecturer myself, it's fair enough to say that a free and liberal ecosystem is conducive to promote any modes of internationalism of education. So my question is, how much of safety nets do you think should be there for the foreign students who come to study over here? So by safety nets, what do I mean? So just a small context. I think it was way back in 2020 when I was still an MPhil research scholar at Jadavpur University, that one Polish student, he was Kamil Sidinski, who was studying at the Department of Comparative Literature. He was sent a letter by the Home Ministry to leave the country within 15 days when it was discovered that he was covering the anti-CAA protest which was going on in Kolkata at that point of time. Similarly, one day ago, there was one more news of a student at, I think, Bangladeshi student at the Vishwabharati University in West Bengal, when he also received the same letter from the FRRO, from the Home Ministry, to leave the country in a week. So just your comments on this, on the safety nets.
Madam.
Thank you so much.
Madam, sorry, here. Madam, I know the time is less. My question will be very short. Myself, Dr. Bindesh, I'm from PP Sawan University, Surat, Gujarat. My question is, madam, as a Make in India, can we run a campaign like a Study in India? As of now, campaign is there, Study in India program is there, but that is only for top 100 NIF university and everything. Can AIU and other government bodies can join together and can a plan Study in India campaign over the countries so that we can attract the students for the other universities as well? Thank you.
All right, I will try to answer a few things, not all. To answer the question about the visa cancellation, I should tell you this, that whether it is Indian students or international students, they are expected to follow the law. So even if Indian students, if they go abroad and if they are undertaking any activities that is in violation of the law, that country's legal system will respond. So if foreign students, so there is an obligation on the part of the institution to make these foreign students become familiar broadly with the law of the land, and they should be having an informed understanding as to what they can do and what they cannot do. Because if they do end up violating the law, naturally that hosting foreign students doesn't mean that we are somehow going to protect them from their activities if it is not in conformity to the law. Rule of law should prevail. To answer your question, I entirely agree with you. I mean, we have not promoted India as a destination for education. Individual universities, I mean, the story of Dr. Pandit and Pune University is a complete outlier in the Indian landscape of higher education. Kudos to her and the people who did that. But the general trends are that India is not seen as a destination for higher education. And there is some limit on that. STEM areas, some engineering students and others, they might come here. We need to promote it in a very big manner, and those type of programs are essential. Talking about responding to your question, sir, resource is always a problem, and I started my response or reflections on the basis of that. But at the same time, we need to push the boundaries and start thinking about different forms of internationalization. I mean, one of the things that I will say, even we are guilty, is that we have not promoted internationalization in South Asia, for example. I mean, think about the possibility for, say, Indian students to go and spend time in Nepal and Bhutan and in Bangladesh and Sri Lanka and, the whole South Asian periphery. A lot of amazing experiences can be gathered with a relatively significantly lesser cost. We need to, in principle, recognize the positivity associated with internationalization and be imaginative as far as resources are concerned. That's it.
Thank you very much for your question about the mutual recognition agreement. And of course, you picked the area where the agreement where it doesn't cover. I think it's to say that professional qualifications are outside the agreement is not quite right. Main reasons for it, particularly in the professions you mentioned, is because professional bodies regulate admission to those careers and to those professions. So that's why. The agreement was really focusing on all of the academic qualifications as at least the first step. But I agree with you, being able to get our professional bodies between Australia and India to work more closely together to actually properly recognise in a more streamlined way is definitely an ambition of ours. And let's see whether the next phase of free trade agreement talks between Australia and India can try and tackle this. Certainly, I would like to see some movement in that regard. But I think this is a really good and significant first step. And it really recognises a maturity in the relationship between both countries and both countries' education systems, that we are now mutually and equally agreeing each other's qualifications from everything of a certificate up to PhD. So it's a really good first step, but agree there's still more work to do, but I think we have some opportunities to try and influence that. There was a question over here just with regards to the NSQF, the National Higher Education Qualifications Framework. Thank you, sir. And then the Australian Qualifications Framework. Absolutely, these things are critical, and it's why the government-to-government work that Australia and India invests in makes it simpler for internationalization to occur, because when we understand each other's systems better, we can design curriculum, we can design degree programs, we can do twinning, joint and dual degrees in a much more safe and trustworthy way, because both systems and both countries understand each other. And it's why, deliberately why, the Australian government sends specialised expert education diplomats and others to its overseas missions all around the world. And the other sort of reflection I might just offer to some of the things that Professor Kumar and others picked up on, internationalisation does require investment. So in terms of the gentleman's question about study in India, making India and those kind of campaigns, there's a range of things that you have to really put in place. And I'm sure Mam can talk about it in terms of her experience that work. And it does require investment. It requires investment from institutions, and it does require investment from governments. And our government doesn't rest on its laurels. It consistently reviews policy settings on our international education system. We are constantly investing in innovation. So we're running some pilots between Australia and India and other countries in Southeast Asia, primarily focused on, well, what's next in internationalization? How do you properly, to the comments this morning, integrate work, integrated learning, internships, experiential learning? How do we credential it? You know, India's ahead of the game in terms of its unified credit framework. and all of these things. So we're really, we're looking at some of these, what are the next innovations that we can kind of do? And so my kind of reflection would be from a government, but also on behalf of Australian institutions, is you're constantly reviewing, you're constantly kind of thinking about it, and it does require a bit of an investment.
Thank you, Matthew. And ma'am, you want a few minutes? Okay.
Yeah. The couple of points, I think all the speakers have given very important points. I know there are a lot of issues with the internationalization, but every university is doing something or other. I think the suggestions which have come from the audience are also very important. And the one that the recognition of education qualification are important, but with that also it's important how we do the credit equivalence for the credit transfer. And if we are really having the student exchange and we're doing the, transferring the credit, that's very important. And I understand the AIU is working on this area, and I think that will help in big way to all the Indian universities. I think one thing which can be started, because every university cannot set up the international offices to start with. Maybe those universities who are very good, the international office or the international collaborations, maybe the Indian universities can collaborate with the other Indian universities for giving maybe the study abroad experience, or the 3-continent experience, or in the global immersion program, which are the shorter duration, or hosting the international students under the India immersion programs. So at least, that can be worked out. We have been inviting the students from the different countries under the India immersion program, where they're coming only for 3 weeks to 4 weeks, visit the various cities and the universities. So maybe there's something like that. Maybe the AIU can initiate with those universities who are already doing the internationalization big way, so that other universities in those areas can have this experience. Then they can set up their offices, because now with the NEP 2020, and where we are talking about the joint degrees, we are training programs, and I think that also can be worked out in a way that some part of the study the student can do in India, and then they go for the remaining part and they earn the degree from both the universities. And this can be done very successfully if the curriculum mapping has been done properly and the agreement has been done between the universities. I just share you only the 2 examples that for last 10 years we have been doing with the Florida State universities, that 7 semesters the students do in India, and 8 semester they do in Florida State University for their dissertation on the major project. And while they are doing their major project, they do all the few courses of the Florida State University, straight where they get the admission into their 2nd year of master's program, where that we do the credit transfer for our BTech program and student get the BTech program. So there are the possibilities which can be worked out. So maybe the Indian university need to partner, and see that how their curriculums are matching, and then they can take the support. And I think the study in India campaign, I think, is really, really needed, because we have not marketed India as collaboratively as a destination for the higher education that is needed. The most important when you are hosting the international students, it's become that how you really take care of the cultural issues, their needs. I think that's where the faculty mentors play a very important role. Like our international affairs department, we have got around 30 people in the international affairs department. In addition to each institution, we have the internationalization coordinator, which meet the students almost every week. And then we have the mentors on every month. They check the review, that their progress, how they are doing in academics. And otherwise, what happens, because their English language is weak, sometimes they really lag behind in the class, and how you ensure that in N period, the student, they get the degree. Now issues coming, like we had a large number of students from Afghanistan, and the moment the diplomatic ties got broken, getting the visa is very, very difficult. We could make the offer to them to study in our Dubai campus, but many students are stuck. So how those really students can complete the degree, having the regular degree, because you cannot have the 100% now in this time. to have the online. So that the challenges are faced. So we are finding the way and solution how those students, though they have not come to the India, how they can get the degrees. Those challenges will be faced, but I think the universities need to innovate and seek the support wherever the government bodies can recognize, especially in such cases, if the education is delivered online, but that can be recognized. So I think this is a great opportunity for the internationalization, for research, academics, and student exchange, but the efforts need to be made by all universities. Thank you.
I would like to thank the President and the Secretary of AIU and USTM, because you would see by the representation here itself that private universities are much better off when it comes to international students than the state universities, either the central or the state. I represent a premier central university. And the problem for us is at the philosophical level, India is very universal, Matthew. We have Vasudhaiva Kutumbakam. We say the world is a family. And we say Atiti Devo Bhava. That is, the guest is next to God. But the problem comes when we have to implement it. And the problem is universities like Jadavpur or JNU or others who are on the top, the JJ. We have usually problems is faculty in India, our intellectuals are very, very independent, very autonomous. Let me tell you, a university like JNU, we have a lot of international programs taking place, but the attitude of state and central universities has been that they should come to us. Why should we go to them? And also Indian attitude is no publicity. Do anything, but do it quietly. So this also goes against a culture that we have to change, where we have to put our best foot forward, or we have to learn how to market ourselves. I don't think we are very good at it. And this is something that creates problem. The ICCR, Indian Council for Cultural Relations, gives a lot of scholarships, brings students from especially the developing countries, and they send them to the different universities, and they pay all their fees and everything. The other major problem is we don't even publicize what we have. Like, for example, JNU is the only university that teaches 23 foreign languages. And these are from corpuses given by foreign governments. The Indian government doesn't give anything to it. It is done by the Greek government, or now the latest is the Malaysian, Bhasha Malaysia has come in. The other is the area studies. And the question of credit transfer, most of you have raised. We have had for the last 35 years a semester abroad program in JNU, and credits are transferred because we have a bilateral agreement, and Jawaharlal Nehru University has been following the American system of credits from 1969. So in our university, the chairpersons and the deans are more powerful than the vice chancellor. So you can understand, but our problem is infrastructure. Let's say I want to build something new. So we have to now look towards private sector, which we are doing, and also public-private collaboration, and maybe an alumni fund, which is what we are looking at. So we have to, because government has its limitations in giving us, because our fees are minuscule. See, in India, we have problems of how to get all Indians together. Forget going abroad. We are a continent by ourselves. I come from the state of Tamil Nadu. When I came to JNU, it was a new experience for me. So you have that level at the national level itself. We have to break a lot of walls that we have created, because I come from the state of Maharashtra, where you have literally most of the Pune University does not give any seats to candidates outside the state of Maharashtra. Maximum is given to Pune University area itself, followed by other universities within Maharashtra. So, and we also need 15% over and above the Indian quota. Like private universities, we don't have only STEM subjects. Public universities need to do all the subjects which are not even feasible. Like I have to run a women's studies program, I have to run sociology, political science, I have to learn all languages, So if you see, it's not like private universities where they just go where the money is. We have to go where students want to come. And 80% of the students come to humanities, social sciences, and languages. So being a government that is a democracy, we have to first see how we uplift our own people and get them approved. And JNU has a fees of 10 and 20 rupees, which is as good as free. And running JNU is totally on the central government's, money that we get. So it's a totally not even a level playing ground in India. So I think Suranjan Da will agree with me. He's Jadavpur and I'm JNU. Despite all these two universities are doing fantastically well. So I think we beat all the private universities. I'm sorry, I'm a proud JNUite and Jadavpur I know. And I think we are doing enormously well. We are the only university to produce 2 Nobel Prize winners in economics. I challenge you, equal us. And the Presidency College of Chennai, which produced 2 physics Nobel Prize winners, all government institutions. So let's not run down the work that the Indian government has done for education. They have done a lot, I agree. There is a lot more to do. But I think we have done phenomenally well than all countries of South Asia. And I'm very proud of that. And I think that is because of the Indic civilization and the spirit of assimilation, of celebrating cultural diversity. So I will end with my formula of the 6 Ds that JNU follows: development, democracy, difference, dissent, diversity, and dialogue. And I think that symbolizes JNU. And recently our education minister said, if Jadavpur and JNU exists, there is democracy in India. Thank you so much, and thank you all. And I thank both USTM for the fantastic hospitality and AIU for giving us an opportunity to come together and discuss. Thank you once again. Namaskar. Jai Hind.
Thank you. The chairperson of this session, Professor Santishri Thulipudi Pandit, Vice Chancellor, JNU. Co-chairperson, Professor Balvinder Shukla, Vice Chancellor, Amity University, Noida. The speakers, Dr. Vidya Yarvedkar, Pro-Chancellor, Symbiosis International, who had joined us online. Mr. Matthew Johnston, Minister Counselor, Australian High Commission, India. Professor Kalpan Trivedi, Vice Provost, Global Affairs and Director, IPO, University Online, who had joined us online. And Professor C. Rajkumar, Vice Chancellor, OP Jindal Global University, Sonipat, for chairing the panelists. Thank you, everyone. And we will now begin with the next session. Thank you, everyone, and the panel. We now begin with a session on promotion of Indian languages and entrepreneurship initiatives in India. The National Education Policy 2020 recommended for the medium of instructions be in the home language, mother tongue, local language up to at least class 5 and preferably up to class 8 wherever possible. The policy also provides for making available high quality textbooks in their home language, mother tongue, and encouraging teachers to use a bilingual approach while teaching. In addition to this, it provides for more higher educational institutions and more programs in higher education to use the mother tongue local language as a medium of instruction and offer programs bilingually in a push for the government's efforts to promote indigenous languages. And Indian Knowledge System has set aside 300.7 crores for the national institutions for the promotion of Indian language. It is an increase of 20% from 2022-23 and 70% from 2021-22 for the promotion of Indian language, and has doubled the fund for the IKS scheme. The world celebrates Entrepreneurship Day on 21st August. It is celebrated to mark the achievement and efforts of the entrepreneurs who work diligently and innovatively and shows paths to others. There is a memento to celebrate the Entrepreneurship Day on 21st August 2023. This session will be talking on initiatives related to entrepreneurship and Rozgar Srijan Kendra. May I now request the speakers for the session on promotion of Indian language and entrepreneurship initiatives India, Professor Chammu Krishna Shastri, Chairman, Bharatiya Bhasha Samiti Ministry of Education, Government of India, Professor Nageshwar Rao, Vice Chancellor, Indira Gandhi National Open University, New Delhi, Professor R.K. Mittal, Vice Chancellor of Chaudhary Bansilal University, and Professor Somnath Sachdeva, Vice Chancellor, Kurukshetra University, to kindly come over to the dais. May I request our Honorable Vice Chancellor, Sir, Professor G.D. Sharma, Sir, to kindly felicitate Professor Chammu Krishna Shastri, Chairman, Bharatiya Bhasha Samiti, Ministry of Education, Government of India. Professor Nageshwar Rao, Vice Chancellor, Indira Gandhi National Open University, New Delhi. Professor R.K. Mittal, Vice Chancellor of Chaudhary Bansilal University, Bhiwani. And Professor Somnath Sachdeva, Vice Chancellor, Kurukshetra University. Before we begin the session, a brief introduction. Professor Chammu Krishna Shastri is the Chairman of Bharatiya Bhasha Samiti, a high-part committee of Government of India for the promotion of Indian languages. He is an Indian educationist who has been working for the revival of Sanskrit language. He is a trustee and secretary of the Sanskrit Promotion Foundation and co-founder of Samskrita Bharati. He is one of the founders of the Speak Sanskrit movement and has inspired thousands of volunteers to learn and teach Sanskrit through Sambhashana Shibiram. He had been a member of the Grant and Aid Committee, Government of India, and associated with NCERT, CBSE, and various state boards in connection with Sanskrit education. Professor Nageshwar Rao is Vice Chancellor of Indira Gandhi National Open University, New Delhi. Earlier, he was the Vice Chancellor of Uttarakhand Open University, Haldwani, Kumaon University, Nainital, Uttar Pradesh, Rajashri Tandon Open University, Director and Dean of Faculty of Management Studies, Vikram University, Ujjain. Professor Rao is also holding the additional charge of Director, Central Hindi Directorate, New Delhi. He was professor in Pandit Jawaharlal Nehru Institute of Business Management, Vikram University, Ujjain. He was conferred with the fellow at the Commonwealth of Learning Canada in Scotland and also conferred with honoris causa by K.K. Handik Open University, Guwahati. Professor R.K. Mittal is the Vice Chancellor of Chaudhary Bansilal University, Bhiwani. He has teaching and research interests in areas of business environment, development issues and policy, competitive analysis, banking and financial institutions, managerial issues in organization and institutions of higher learning. He has worked as Director Development in Guru Gobind Singh Indraprastha University, New Delhi. Professor Mittal is actively associated with academic institutions. Professor Somnath Sachdeva, Vice Chancellor, Kurukshetra University, is an alumnus of Kurukshetra University in Civil Engineering. He is well known as the main consultant in the field of highway engineering. In this part of this country, he is equally known for his contribution to social science activities. He has notable contribution in preparing plan for widening of railway roads and also associated with project of providing fresh water supply. He is equally good in extracurricular activities. He was bestowed with Best Paper Award and Gold Medal for his research paper in the Journal of Indian Roads Congress. Similarly, he got another Best Paper Award at an international conference held in USA. As far as R&D is concerned, he supervised more than 75 MTech and PhD scholars. For the dissertation, published more than 100 research papers in reputed national and international journals and conferences. May I now request Professor Chamu Krishna Shastri, Chairman, Bharatiya Bhasha Samiti Government of India, to kindly address.
मंच में विराजमान कुलपति महोदय और सभा में उपस्थित सभी कुलपति महोदय, आप सभी को मेरा प्रणाम। केंद्र सरकार के शिक्षा मंत्रालय के द्वारा भारतीय भाषा समिति की स्थापना हुई और न केवल शिक्षा मंत्रालय के द्वारा शिक्षा संस्थानों में अपितु पूरे देश में भारतीय भाषाओं का विकास कैसे हो और उसके लिए क्या क्या करना चाहिए, ये भारतीय भाषा समिति का कार्य है। आप ये भी जानते हैं, भारतीय भाषा समिति के संस्तुति के पश्चात विश्वविद्यालय अनुदान आयोग द्वारा एक निर्णय लिया गया कि विश्वविद्यालयों में स्नातक और परास्नातक कक्षाओं में शिक्षा देने के लिए पाठ्य पुस्तकें, संदर्भ पुस्तकें, संदर्भ ग्रंथ एवं पाठ्य सामग्री, अध्ययन सामग्री भारतीय भाषाओं में इनका निर्माण हो, इसके लिए एक समिति बनी है, एपेक्स बॉडी बनी है यूजीसी के द्वारा। उसका अध्यक्ष माननीय नागेश्वर राव जी हैं, यहां बैठे हैं। अब इस विषय पे मैं नीड के बारे में बताता हूं, माननीय नागेश्वर राव जी प्रोविजन के बारे में बताएंगे, मैं कॉन्टेक्स्ट के बारे में बताता हूं, वो प्रोसेस के बारे में बताएंगे। हम दोनों मिलके ये थोड़ा थोड़ा विषय प्रस्तुति करते हैं। अंग्रेजों के आने से पहले, अंग्रेजी शिक्षा व्यवस्था आने से पहले, 1835 में अंग्रेजी शिक्षा व्यवस्था आ गई। उससे पहले भारत में तो शिक्षा थी, भारतीय भाषाओं में था, और भारतीय भाषाओं में शिक्षा से ही भारत विश्व गुरु था। और यहाँ गुलामी नौकरों का निर्माण करने के लिए अंग्रेजी शिक्षा व्यवस्था आई, वो अभी चल रहा है। 13 साल के बाद उसका 200 वर्ष पूर्ण होंगे। अब हमें सोचना चाहिए, ये गुलामी नौकरों के निर्माण करने के लिए जो व्यवस्था आई थी, वो 200 साल के बाद भी वैसे ही कंटिन्यू होना चाहिए। ये भी एक प्रश्न है मेरे मन में और कई देश के जाने माने शिक्षाविदों के मन में भी। हम अभी देश में एक नया परिवर्तन देख रहे हैं। माननीय प्रधानमंत्री जी हर समय हर जगह भारतीय भाषा में भाषण करते हैं। गृह मंत्रालय में गृह मंत्री जी के पास जो कुछ भी फाइल जाती है, संचिका जाती है, वो हिंदी भाषा में ही, दूसरी किसी भाषा में नहीं। अभी गृह मंत्रालय में, केंद्र सरकार के गृह मंत्रालय में सारी संचिकाएं, सारी फाइल वर्क, एवरीथिंग वो अंग्रेजी में नहीं होती है, हिंदी में होती है। और शुरू में ऐसा था, पहले अंग्रेजी में लिखते थे, बाद में इसका हिंदी अनुवाद करते थे। लेकिन अभी उसमें भी बदलाया, पहले हिंदी में लिखना, बाद में इसका अंग्रेजी में समरी लिखना। तो गृह मंत्रालय में अभी 100%, 100% हिंदी भाषा में कामकाज चलता है। अगर गृह मंत्रालय में चलता है, क्या अन्य मंत्रालयों में नहीं चल सकता है? अन्य मंत्रालयों में नहीं चल सकता है तो क्या देश में नहीं चल सकता है? चल सकता है। गृह मंत्रालय में क्यों हुआ? इसलिए हुआ कि गृह मंत्री जी के विल पावर पर उन्होंने कहा, तय किया, काम हुआ। इसी प्रकार अगर देश में शिक्षाविदों का, हम सबका संकल्प शक्ति, विल पावर अगर तय करते हैं तो कुछ भी हो सकता है। नहीं, ऐसा नहीं। तो क्यों होना चाहिए? तो आप भी जानते हैं, भारतीय भाषा में शिक्षा हो, सभी मानते हैं, स्वीकृति। लेकिन एक्शन कहां से शुरू करना, यही विषय है। तो धीरे धीरे भारत अभी अंग्रेजी माध्यम केंद्रित शिक्षा व्यवस्था से भारतीय माध्यम केंद्रित शिक्षा व्यवस्था के ओर भारत जा रहा है। अंग्रेजी रहेगी, अंग्रेजी माध्यम रहेगा, लेकिन उसके साथ साथ जो छात्र भारतीय भाषा माध्यम से पढ़ना चाहेगा, उसके लिए भी व्यवस्था होना चाहिए। ये आज नौजवानों का संकल्प है, अपेक्षा है, भारत की अपेक्षा है। भारत में भारतीय भाषा में शिक्षा प्राप्त करना भारतीय का अधिकार है, ऐसा मैं मानता हूं। उसके लिए व्यवस्था करना हमारा कर्तव्य है। जो जिस माध्यम से पढ़ना चाहे वो उस माध्यम से पढ़े, हमें उसके लिए ये नहीं है, ये ही चाहिए हम नहीं बोलेंगे, ये भी चाहिए, बस इतना ही है। ये ही विचार नहीं है, ये भी चाहिए, ये हमारा विचार है। तो इस प्रकार अगर सभी भारतीय भाषाओं के माध्यम से शिक्षा होना, देखिए भारतीय भाषा सिखाना वो छोटा विषय है, जिस भाषा माध्यम से सिखाते हैं यह सबसे बड़ा महत्वपूर्ण विषय है। भारतीय भाषाओं का भविष्य इस पर आधारित है। और भारत में अभी जो इकोसिस्टम है, अंग्रेजी इकोसिस्टम है, वो अंग्रेजी भाषा माध्यम से आई है। अगर भारतीय भाषा माध्यम का इकोसिस्टम भी खड़ा करना, तो भारतीय भाषा माध्यम में से भी शिक्षा होना। अगर स्कूल शिक्षा में, जैसा अभी NEP 2020 में कहा गया, मातृभाषा माध्यम से शिक्षा होना, अगर स्कूल शिक्षा में भारतीय भाषा माध्यम से, मातृभाषा माध्यम से शिक्षण सफल होना है, तो उच्च शिक्षा में भी भारतीय भाषा माध्यम से शिक्षा का विकल्प होना चाहिए। भारतीय भाषा माध्यम के लिए भी विजिबिलिटी मिलना चाहिए। भारतीय भाषा माध्यम शिक्षा भी एस्पिरेशनल होना चाहिए। इसके लिए ऐसे उद्देश्यों से कई प्रकार के कार्यक्रम हमें लेना है, अभी ले रहे हैं। बहुत प्रकार के चिंतन चल रहा है। परिस्थिति हमें भी मालूम होना चाहिए कि आज टेक्नोलॉजी के माध्यम से किस भाषा का प्रचार हो रहा है। भारतीय भाषाओं का प्रचार हो रहा है क्या? नहीं हो रहा है। क्यों नहीं हो रहा है? आप देखिए, टेक्नोलॉजी और भाषा का अगर संबंध करते हैं, टेक्नोलॉजी फॉर इंडियन लैंग्वेजेस, टेक्नोलॉजी इन इंडियन लैंग्वेजेस, technology through Indian languages. There are 3 dimensions. Technology for Indian languages, हम जानते हैं. Technology through Indian languages, यानी टेक्नोलॉजी का शिक्षा, अभी टेक्नोलॉजी की शिक्षा अंग्रेजी माध्यम से चल रही है, भारतीय भाषा माध्यम से नहीं. टेक्नोलॉजी इन इंडियन लैंग्वेजेस मीन्स ऑपरेटिंग सिस्टम्स भारतीय भाषा माध्यम से निर्माण हुआ. अभी तक भारत में ऑपरेटिंग सिस्टम्स हम भारतीय भाषा माध्यम से भारतीय भाषा में निर्माण नहीं किए हैं, इसलिए वो अंग्रेजी ही चल रहा है. ये भी करना होगा. ऐसे कई चीजें करना है तो संपूर्ण भारतीय भाषा माध्यम शिक्षण के बारे में भी हमें सोचना चाहिए. इसलिए विश्वविद्यालय अनुदान आयोग द्वारा तो एक निर्णय लिया, स्टेप बाय स्टेप अगर कार्य करना है तो कैसे करना. मैं एक उदाहरण बताता हूं. जैसे ये सिल्क साड़ी है, मान लीजिए 1 लाख रुपए का, 2 लाख रुपए का बहुत कॉस्टली सिल्क साड़ी भी रहता है. वो सिल्क साड़ी मैंने ऐसे फेंक दिया, रख दिया. अनफॉर्चुनेटली वो एक बुश जहां कंटक है झाड़ में गिर गया, तो कांटे सब वो सिल्क साड़ी में घुस जाते हैं. तो उस प्रकार अभी हमारी भारतीय भाषा शिक्षा का या अंग्रेजी शिक्षा की शिक्षा व्यवस्था का हुई है. उसको अगर एकदम साड़ी को अगर खींचते हैं सारा टूट जाएगा. एक एक कांटा निकाल के अभी उसको बहुत नाजुक से बाहर लाना होगा. तो इस प्रकार अभी एक शिक्षा व्यवस्था की स्थिति है. तो एक कदम आगे रख के जाना. तो मान लीजिए अगले 5 साल का 10 साल का हम रोड मैप बनाते हैं, भारतीय भाषा माध्यम से भी गुणवत्तापूर्ण शिक्षा व्यवस्था सभी को उपलब्ध कराना. तो क्या हमारा रोड मैप क्या होगा, विजन क्या होगा. तो इस साल के लिए अगर इस प्रकार का अगर हम लक्ष्य लेते हैं कि सबसे पहले सामग्री, शिक्षण सामग्री हम भारतीय भाषा में निर्माण करते हैं, बाद में शिक्षण पद्धति परिवर्तन, परीक्षा पद्धति परिवर्तन वगैरह बाद में हो सकता है. तो सबसे पहले स्टडी टेक्स्ट बुक्स, रेफरेंस बुक्स एंड स्टडी मटेरियल्स फॉर ऑल द सब्जेक्ट्स भारतीय भाषाओं में तैयार करना चाहिए. और उसके लिए तो यूजी कोर्स का, पीजी कोर्स का हमें सोचना चाहिए. उसमें आज क्या स्थिति है माननीय नागेश्वर राव जी बताएंगे ही, लेकिन मैं ये कहना चाहता हूं कि देखिए पॉपुलर सब्जेक्ट्स, सोशल साइंस, ये सब भारतीय भाषा में या ह्यूमैनिटीज का, आर्ट स्ट्रीम का होगा, स्टेम का, साइंस एजुकेशन का, कॉमर्स एजुकेशन का भारतीय भाषा में. तो आप कहेंगे कि भारतीय भाषा माध्यम से पढ़ के कहाँ जॉब मिलेगा, वो व्यवस्था बाद में होने वाला है. अभी उसके लिए भी चर्चा चल रही है. तो सब एक साथ नहीं होता. फर्स्ट स्टेप स्टडी मटेरियल, टेक्स्ट बुक्स, रेफरेंस बुक्स, ये हमें भारतीय भाषा में निर्माण करना चाहिए. इसलिए मेरा हर एक विश्वविद्यालय के हर एक कुलपति से मेरा निवेदन है कि अपने विश्वविद्यालय में जो जो विषय पढ़ाए जा रहे हैं, हर एक विषय का सूची तो आपके पास है ही, उसमें किस विषय के लिए भारतीय भाषा में पाठ्य पुस्तक उपलब्ध है, किस विषय में पाठ्य पुस्तक उपलब्ध नहीं है, सबसे पहले ये सूची बनाना. जिन विषयों के लिए पाठ्य पुस्तक भारतीय भाषा में उपलब्ध नहीं है, यूजी कोर्स हो, पीजी कोर्स हो, स्टेम कोर्स हो, साइंस कोर्स हो, कोई भी जिस विषय के लिए भारतीय भाषा में पाठ्य पुस्तक उपलब्ध नहीं है, वह अगले 1 साल में, 2 साल में हमें अमृत काल में, देश के अमृत काल में इन सभी विषयों में पाठ्य पुस्तकों का निर्माण, पाठ्य सामग्री का निर्माण, यह हमारा पहला लक्ष्य होना चाहिए. भारत में भारतीय भाषा में पाठ्य पुस्तक उपलब्ध नहीं, यह अपमान का विषय है, अन्याय है. इस प्रकार की स्थिति नहीं होना चाहिए. हमें नव भारत निर्माण करना है तो, भव्य भारत निर्माण करना है तो एक भारत निर्माण करना है, तो श्रेष्ठ भारत निर्माण करना है, तो जगतगुरु भारत निर्माण करना है, तो भव्य दिव्य भारत निर्माण करना है, तो हमें सबसे पहले ऐसे भारतीय भाषा माध्यम से शिक्षण देने के लिए पहला कदम भारतीय भाषा माध्यम में पढ़ाने के लिए भारतीय भाषाओं में पाठ्य पुस्तकों का, पाठ्य सामग्री का निर्माण का यह बड़े योजना हम सबको लेना चाहिए। हर एक विश्वविद्यालय इस कार्य का स्वामित्व लेना चाहिए। हर एक विश्वविद्यालय इस काम के लिए योजना करना चाहिए। हम सब मिलके इस प्रकार का अगर कार्य योजना हम करते हैं, भारतीय भाषाओं के द्वारा भारतीय ज्ञान परंपरा का पुनरुत्थान होगा। भारतीय ज्ञान परंपरा का पुनरुत्थान से भारतीयता का पुनरुत्थान होगा। भारतीयता का पुनरुत्थान से भारत फिर समर्थ भारत, श्रेष्ठ भारत बनेगा। इस आशा से मैं मेरा वक्तव्य समाप्त करता हूं।
May I now request Professor Nageshwar Rao, Vice Chancellor of Indira Gandhi National Open University, New Delhi, to kindly address the gathering.
ये बढ़ेगा ना? आप सभी को नमस्कार। आदरणीय शास्त्री जी ने हम सबको दिशा दी है कि हम कैसे अपने देश को आगे बढ़ाने के लिए बेहतरी से अच्छा काम कर सकते हैं। इसमें हमने प्रयास ये किया है कि अंग्रेजी में पीपीटी और हिंदी में बातचीत, और मैं आंध्रा का हूँ, कर्नाटका के हैं, तो हम लोग कोशिश करेंगे हिंदी में बोलने की। मैडम जेएनयू की वीसी हैं, वो बार बार कहती हैं हम तमिल हैं, तो मैं भी कहता हूँ मैं तेलुगु हूँ। भारतीय भाषाओं से हम सभी को प्रेम है। हमारी भाषा है, ये हमारी मातृभाषा है। पैदा होते ही जिस भाषा को हम लोग प्रयोग करते हैं वो हमारी मातृभाषा है। ये स्वाभाविक और नैसर्गिक प्रक्रिया है। इसमें पढ़ना पढ़ाना, इसके लिए शासन ने जो बातें कही उसको पहले से ही हम लोग लागू कर रहे हैं, पहले से ही इसके बारे में बातचीत कर रहे हैं। थोड़ी बहुत जानकारी, और इस बीच में जो समिति यूजीसी ने बनाई है और जो आदरणीय शास्त्री जी के नेतृत्व में हम लोग काम कर रहे हैं, उस संक्षिप्त लेखा जोखा हम आपके सामने प्रस्तुत करेंगे। आप देखें, यूजीसी ने अपने ट्विटर में ये कहा हुआ है कि हमें जनजाति जो भाषाएं हैं उसको भी बचा के रखना है। प्रधानमंत्री ने भी और हमारे अपने मंत्री ने भी, जो भी भाषाएं हमारे देश में हैं उन सभी भाषाओं में हम अपनी शिक्षण व्यवस्था को बढ़ाएं। हमारी GER अभी 27% है, 100% करना है। और अंग्रेजी पढ़ने वाले लोगों की संख्या जो जानने वाले हैं, पढ़ने वाले छोड़ दिए, 11% है। यानी हम 89% लोगों से जो शिक्षण व्यवस्था है उसको दूर कर रहे हैं। ये एक स्वाभाविक और नैसर्गिक प्रक्रिया है। इसमें हम लोग किस प्रकार से आगे बढ़ सकते हैं। NEP में बार बार इस बात को पहली बार आधिकारिक तौर पर कहा गया है कि हम टीचिंग इन मदर टंग कर सकते हैं। लोकल लैंग्वेजेस जो भी हो सकते हैं उस पर भी कर सकते हैं। 12 भाषाएं या 14 भाषाएं जो भी हों, 22 भाषाएं, हम उस पर विवाद नहीं करना चाहते, लेकिन अपनी भाषा में हम लोग टीचिंग करें। प्राइमरी में तो लगभग अनिवार्य कर दिया गया है, लेकिन हम लोग उच्च शिक्षा में भी इस दिशा में सोच सकते हैं। NEP में जो कहा गया है वो यही है कि more achieves and more programs in higher education will use the mother tongue local language as a medium of instruction and or offer programs bilingually in order to increase access and GER and also to promote the strength, usage and vibrancy. प्रमोट करें। वैसे अगर आप एक्चुअल स्टैटिस्टिक्स देखेंगे तो ऑलरेडी हम प्रमोट कर रहे हैं, लेकिन अब एनईपी कह रहा है, यूजीसी कह रहा है, प्रधानमंत्री जी कह रहे हैं, शिक्षा मंत्री जी कह रहे हैं, अब हम सब भी उस दिशा में आगे बढ़े। साथ ही जहां पर भी आपको शैक्षिक संसाधनों की कमी हो, ट्रांसलेट भी कर सकते हैं। कई बार लोग कहते हैं कि हमारे जो मातृभाषाएं हैं, जो प्रांत की भाषाएं हैं, उसमें गुणवत्तापरक पाठ्यपुस्तक नहीं है। ट्रांसलेशन करिए और आसानी से ट्रांसलेशन हो सकते हैं। किसी भी भाषा की पुस्तक, गुजराती में अच्छी पुस्तक है, उसको बाकी सभी भाषाओं में ट्रांसलेट करें। तमिल में कोई पुस्तक बहुत अच्छी है, उसको सभी भाषाओं में ट्रांसलेट करें। यह संभव है। दोनों बातें हमारी राष्ट्रीय शिक्षा नीति में कही गई हैं। जो हमारे लिए बहुत महत्वपूर्ण है, हम सब विश्वविद्यालय को देख रहे हैं, विश्वविद्यालय को आगे बढ़ाने का प्रयास कर रहे हैं। हम सब थोड़ा सा इस दिशा में सोचना शुरू करेंगे तो उसके बहुत दूरगामी परिणाम मिलेंगे। अगर आप देखें, ये जो स्वाभाविक और नैसर्गिक प्रक्रिया है, टीवी चैनल्स, किसी ने कहा नहीं कि तेलुगु में टीवी चैनल चलाइए या तमिल में टीवी चैनल चलाइए, हिंदी में टीवी चैनल चलाइए। अंग्रेजी में शुरू में बहुत चलते थे, धीरे धीरे अपने आप टीवी चैनल्स आने लगे और उनकी लोकप्रियता अपने आप बढ़ने लगी। कहीं पर भी ये कहने को नहीं कहा जा रहा है कि हमको मातृभाषा में टीवी चैनल चलाना है। कोई यूजीसी का सर्कुलर नहीं है, कोई गवर्नमेंट ऑफ इंडिया का सर्कुलर नहीं है। राजभाषा विभाग जरूर इसमें हिंदी के बारे में बातचीत करता था। और अभी जैसा कि अभी अमित शाह जी का नाम उन्होंने लिया है, गृह मंत्री जी, उन्होंने एक प्रक्रिया शुरू की है, हिंदी टू हिंदी शब्दकोश। लेकिन जो हिंदी वो बता रहे हैं, वो हिंदी ये हमारी साहित्यिक हिंदी नहीं है। उस हिंदी में तमिल के भी शब्द रहेंगे, तेलुगु के भी शब्द रहेंगे, पंजाबी के भी शब्द रहेंगे, उड़िया के भी शब्द रहेंगे। ऐसी शब्दकोश ऑलरेडी तैयार हो रही है। और अभी सूरत में जो राजभाषा का द्वितीय सम्मेलन हुआ था, उसमें 51,000 शब्दों का विमोचन उन्होंने खुद किया था। आज उसकी संख्या 1 लाख शब्दों की हो गई है और ये डिजिटली सर्चेबल भी है। तो ये प्रयास बार बार ये किया जा रहा है, केवल हिंदी नहीं, हमारी सभी भाषाएं मातृभाषाएं हैं। सभी भाषाओं का महत्व है और सभी भाषाओं में शिक्षण व्यवस्थाएं होनी चाहिए। न्यूज हो, सीरियल भी हम लोग अंग्रेजी वाले सीरियल अब नहीं देखते, हिंदी वाले सीरियल, तेलुगु वाले सीरियल, तमिल वाले सीरियल। यहाँ कल मैं टीवी खोल के देख रहा था तो असमीज चैनल्स आ रहे हैं। किसी ने कहा नहीं है, अपने आप आ रहे हैं। मूवीज, फिल्म देखिए, हर एक भाषाओं में मूवी आ रही है और डबिंग लोग कर रहे हैं, ट्रांसलेट कर रहे हैं। ट्रांसलेशन कहिए, डबिंग कहिए, जो भी कहिए। हम लोग अब जो पढ़ाते हैं तो ट्रांसलेशन कहते हैं, अदरवाइज डबिंग हो जाती है। एजुकेशन की जो चैनल्स है, ये जो स्वयंप्रभा चैनल्स है, इसमें भारतीय भाषाओं के साथ शिक्षण व्यवस्था हो सकती है। हमने भी एक प्रयास शुरू किया था पिछले वर्ष से, जिसमें हमारे यहाँ बीए के जो छात्र हैं, उनके जो सोशल साइंस के सब्जेक्ट्स हैं, सोशियोलॉजी, हिस्ट्री, एजुकेशन, पब्लिक एडमिनिस्ट्रेशन, इकोनॉमिक्स, इन सब के लिए स्वयंप्रभा चैनल के माध्यम से मातृभाषा में काउंसलिंग कराना शुरू किया, शिक्षण कराना शुरू कर दिया। यानी सोशियोलॉजी के जो भी पहला टॉपिक है, उसको तेलुगु, कन्नड़, मलयालम, उड़िया, पंजाबी, इन सारी भाषाओं में, 12 भाषाओं में हम लोग लगातार सेशंस ले रहे हैं। बाद में उसको यूट्यूब में डाल रहे हैं, जिससे अगले वर्ष उसका पुनः प्रयोग हो सकता है। जो सबसे आसान तरीका है, जो हमारी भाषा में श्रेष्ठतम जो शिक्षक है, वो हमारे टीवी चैनल पर, जो भारत सरकार का टीवी चैनल है, डिश टीवी चैनल है, जिसकी संख्या आज 36 है, कल 60 होने वाली है, और प्राइमरी एजुकेशन के लिए 200 और जोड़ने वाले हैं। चैनल के द्वारा घर घर तक मातृभाषा में शिक्षण पहुंचाने का प्रयास किया जा रहा है। आज हमारे पास 4000 वीडियोस है केवल बीए प्रोग्राम के लिए 1 साल में। आप सब प्रयास कर सकते हैं। केवल हमारे पास 2 ही चैनल है, हमारे पास इसमें 36 चैनल जिनका हम प्रयोग कर सकते हैं, जिससे इस विषय पर बहुत तेजी से काम हो सकता है। न्यूज़पेपर्स देखिए, हिंदी का न्यूज़पेपर सबसे पॉपुलर है, तमिल के न्यूज़पेपर, तेलुगु के न्यूज़पेपर, आंध्र प्रभा, तो सब जगह के न्यूज़पेपर्स आ रहे हैं। मैगजीन्स देखिएगा, स्टोरी बुक्स, नॉवेल्स, एंटरटेनमेंट, फिल्म्स, कहीं पर भी आप देखेंगे कि मातृभाषा की बात स्वयमेव निकल के आ रही है। केवल शिक्षण में हम लोग थोड़ा सा पीछे रह जाते हैं। नहीं, अंग्रेजी में ही पढ़ना चाहिए। अंग्रेजी में पढ़ेंगे तब समझ में आएगा। अंग्रेजी से अगर हम अंग्रेजी बोलना शुरू करेंगे तभी शायद हम योग्य माने जाएंगे। मैं आज से 40 साल पहले इलाहाबाद विश्वविद्यालय में पढ़ता था। अंग्रेजी माध्यम के बारे में लोग सोचते थे, लेकिन वहां पर भी 3 सेक्शन हिंदी मीडियम के थे, 1 सेक्शन अंग्रेजी मीडियम। 40 साल पहले भी हम लोग हिंदी माध्यम से, तेलुगु माध्यम से, कन्नड़ा माध्यम से, उड़िया माध्यम से शिक्षण कार्य करते थे हायर एजुकेशन में, हायर एजुकेशन। तो ये जो प्रक्रिया है, इसमें अगर आप देखें हमारा इकोसिस्टम क्या है, लर्नर्स 89% ऑफ द लर्नर्स मातृभाषा जानते हैं, अंग्रेजी नहीं जानते, बिल्कुल नहीं जानते। हम बहुत मेहनत कर रहे हैं उनको अंग्रेजी में रटाने की, पढ़ाने की, समझाने की। डिक्शनरियां दे देते हैं, किताबें दे देते हैं और कहते हैं ये जो कोटलर किताब है बहुत अच्छी किताब है, कोटलर के अलावा और कोई MBA में ठीक से पढ़ा नहीं सकता। ये हमारे लिए सबसे महत्वपूर्ण है। उनको क्या चाहिए? उनको ऐसी भाषा में ज्ञान चाहिए जो वो समझ सके, जो वो जान सके, उसको रिप्रोड्यूस कर सके। उनका मस्तिष्क मातृभाषा में जन्म होता है तभी से शुरू हो जाता है, जबकि जो फॉरवर्ड लैंग्वेज होती है वो 5 साल या 6 साल बाद, जब कॉन्वेंट स्कूल में बच्चा जाता है तब जाकर के 6% 6 या 7 साल बाद तब वो भाषा सीखना शुरू करता है। टीचर्स, हम लोगों की बहुत बड़ी भूमिका है, हम ही लोगों को पढ़ाना है। किसी भी भाषा में, अपनी भाषा में हम लोग पढ़ा सकते हैं, बोल सकते हैं। ऑथर्स, टेक्स्ट बुक्स की बात सर ने कही, जिसकी बहुत आवश्यकता है। अपनी मातृभाषा में टेक्स्ट बुक्स लिखवाने में क्या दिक्कत है, लिखने में क्या दिक्कत है? अंग्रेजी में लिखने के लिए बहुत अच्छा सोचते हैं, मातृभाषा में शिक्षक के लिए। मैं तो MBA का अध्यापक हूं। मेरी पहली पुस्तक आज से 30 साल पहले हिंदी में शुरू किया। मेरे कैरियर में उसके कारण से दिक्कतें आई, लेकिन मैंने उस गति को आगे बढ़ाया। इसलिए क्या है, अपनी मातृभाषा में पुस्तकें लिखने से अपना गौरव बढ़ता है। हम अपने गौरव को आगे बढ़ाएं और कोशिश करें जिस क्षेत्र में पुस्तकें कम हो, लोगों ने कहा साइंस में पुस्तकें कम है, लिखना शुरू कर देंगे, कल से शुरू कर देंगे। जहां पुस्तकें कम हो, जिस क्षेत्र में पुस्तकें कम हो, वहां हम अपनी पुस्तक लिखने में मदद कर सकते हैं। ट्रांसलेटर्स, जहां पुस्तकें रियली बहुत अच्छी है किसी भी भाषा में, उसको ट्रांसलेट कराना है, कराइए। पब्लिशर्स, हम आपको स्टैटिस्टिक्स देंगे, हमारे पास स्टैटिस्टिक्स बहुत अच्छी है कि पब्लिशर्स हमारे साथ उपलब्ध हैं, ट्रांसलेटर्स उपलब्ध हैं, ऑथर्स उपलब्ध हैं, टीचर्स उपलब्ध हैं, लर्नर्स उपलब्ध हैं। कॉलेजेस, यूनिवर्सिटीज में ये सब हो रहा है। कॉलेजेस के बारे में अगर आप स्टैटिस्टिक्स लेंगे, वहां पर 90% 80% टीचिंग लर्निंग केवल मातृभाषा में हो रही है। उनको कहीं की दिक्कत आती है जब उनके एग्जामिनेशन पेपर केवल अंग्रेजी में बनते हैं। उन्होंने डिमांड करके उन्होंने उसको अपनी मातृभाषा में कराया। इवन मुझे याद है 85 या 86 में BHU में मैनेजमेंट में मॉडरेशन में पेपर्स हिंदी में कराए जाते थे। तो यानी पहले से ही हिंदी, अंग्रेजी हम लोग प्रयोग करते रहे। कुछ क्षेत्रों में मुझे ये भी जानकारी है, तमिल में या कन्नड़ा में या केरला में, वहां पर भी मातृभाषा में बाइलिंगुअल प्रोसेस चल रहे हैं, चाहे वो कॉलेजेस हों, चाहे यूनिवर्सिटीज हों। और हम लोग तो इस सारी गतिविधियों को आगे बढ़ाने के लिए हमेशा तत्पर रहते हैं, तत्पर रहेंगे और आगे काम करते रहेंगे। क्यों चाहते हैं, सर ने तो बहुत सी बातें बताई। GER अगर हमें 27 से 50 भी करना है, नहीं कर सकते। अगर हम केवल 11% लोगों को ही बढ़ाना शुरू करेंगे, 11% वाले जल्दी से अंग्रेजी सीख ले, जल्दी से अंग्रेजी सीख ले, फिर हम उनको GER बढ़ाने की बात कहेंगे, संभव नहीं। नैसर्गिक जो प्रक्रिया है उस प्रक्रिया को आगे बढ़ाएं। 89% भाषा जो जानते हैं उनके लिए शिक्षण व्यवस्था उपलब्ध कराए, अपने आप ये GER आपका बढ़ जाएगा। बेटर रिजल्ट्स, मातृभाषा में पढ़ेगा, बेटर रिजल्ट्स। फ्रांस, ब्रिटेन, ये जितनी कंट्रीज, जर्मनी, इन सब की पॉपुलेशन 5 से 7 करोड़ है। और अगर आप देखेंगे हम लोग के एक एक प्रदेश, एक एक भाषा के पढ़ने वाले 5 से 7 करोड़ मिल जाएंगे। उनकी भाषा को पढ़ने के लिए अपने देश में बड़े लालायित रहते हैं। फ्रेंच चल रहा है कि नहीं चल रहा है, रशियन चल रहा है कि नहीं चल रहा है, जर्मन चल रहा है कि चल रहा है, जापानीज चल रहे हैं कि नहीं चल रहे हैं, अपनी मातृभाषा चल रही है। इस पे हम लोग सोचे, ये हमारे लिए ज्यादा आवश्यक है और हम लोग बहुत मजबूत होंगे, इसमें अपना गौरव बढ़ रहा है। एक्सेस टू डिसएडवांटेज ग्रुप्स, जो भी हमारे पास डिसएडवांटेज ग्रुप्स है, पैसा नहीं है उनके पास अंग्रेजी, कॉन्वेंट एजुकेशन कितनी जगह पढ़ते हैं। अभी जैसे मैडम भी बता रही थी, JNU में शिक्षण बहुत सस्ते में है। हम लोग अफोर्डेबल बनाना है। अफोर्डेबल कैसे बनाएंगे? जब हम डिसएडवांटेज ग्रुप तक पहुंचेंगे। और इनकी संख्या भी अगर आप देखेंगे 60 से 70% है। उन तक हमें अपनी उच्च शिक्षा पहुंचानी है। उसके बाद हम देखिए सक्सेसफुल एक्सपेरिमेंट्स विद मेडिसिन में, अभी भोपाल में ही MBBS के पाठ्यक्रमों को भाषाओं में बदला करने का प्रयास किया गया। AICT कर रही इंजीनियरिंग के बारे में, और अभी एक हफ्ता पहले ही एक MOU AICT ने साइन किया है MBA को 14 भाषाओं में ट्रांसलेट कराने का। उसमें इग्नू का ही मटेरियल को चुना है, लेकिन हर जगह प्रयास चल रहा है। जहां सबसे कठिन एरियाज जो हैं, मेडिसिन, इंजीनियरिंग और MBA, इन तीनों ही क्षेत्रों में मटेरियल्स डेवलप करने का प्रयास चल रहा है। ये प्रयास केवल एक संस्थान, एक शिक्षक, एक वाइस चांसलर तक सीमित न होकर के हम सब मिलकर के इस कार्य को आगे बढ़ाएं। रिमोट और रूरल एरियाज में जाना है तो भी जैसे हमने वो टिस टीवी के द्वारा कोशिश किया कि मातृभाषा में शिक्षण हो, क्योंकि बड़े बड़े कॉलेजेस में जाएंगे, बड़े बड़े संस्थानों में जाएंगे, वहां तक आकर के उसको हॉस्टल की फीस देनी पड़ेगी। लेकिन रिमोट और रूरल एरियाज में अगर हमें पहुंचना है तो वहां मातृभाषा में ही शिक्षण संभव है। हमारे प्रोसेसेस क्या है? अवेयरनेस, इस बात को हम बार बार इसलिए कह रहे हैं। हम लोगों ने अभी एक हफ्ता पहले कर्नाटका गए थे, वहाँ की राज्य सरकार ने विशेष अभिरुचि लिया, वहाँ के सारे वाइस चांसलर्स को बुलाया, वहाँ के गवर्नर साहब सुबह से शाम तक बैठे रहे, केवल ये जानने के लिए कि इस प्रकार की प्रक्रियाओं से कैसे बेहतर परिणाम निकलेंगे। गुजरात सरकार ने मातृभाषा में अनुवाद करने के लिए एक टूल को वहाँ डेवलप कराया, उसको लीगलाइज करने का प्रयास किया है। एम्प्लॉयमेंट में इंसेंटिव्स देने के बारे में सोच रही है। यानी हर क्षेत्र में अवेयरनेस होने के बाद जागरूकता में एक्शन शुरू हो गए हैं। टीचिंग इन मदर टंग, ये सबसे आसान काम है। बिना टेक्स्ट बुक से आप पढ़ा तो सकते ही हैं। आप अंग्रेजी में पढ़ लीजिए, बच्चों को पढ़ा दीजिए। आप जिस भाषा में पढ़ना चाहे पढ़ लीजिए, अपनी उनकी मातृभाषा में पढ़ाइए। और हम लोग भी रिलेटिवली कंफर्टेबल रहते हैं। हमें अगर कहा जाए अंग्रेजी में बोलना है और फिर कहा जाए हिंदी में बोलना है, शायद हिंदी में हम शायद और अच्छा बोल लेंगे, तेलुगु में मैडम से भी अच्छा बोल लेंगे, तो हम अपनी मातृभाषा में बेहतर बोल पाएंगे। अंग्रेजी में हमारा एक्सेंट हो सकता है गड़बड़ हो, पंक्चुएशन, ग्रामर इत्यादि की गलती भी हो सकती है। उसके बाद टीचिंग, जो टेक्स्ट बुक राइटिंग है, नेचुरल प्रक्रिया है। जब आप पढ़ाना शुरू करेंगे, टेक्स्ट बुक ढूंढेंगे, टेक्स्ट बुक के हिसाब से टेक्स्ट बुक तैयार करेंगे। फिर आप ट्रांसलेशन में कई टूल्स उपलब्ध है। हम अनुवादनी को बार बार इसलिए कह रहे हैं कि इसका डाटाबेस बहुत मजबूत हो चुका है। AICT इस पर लगातार कार्य कर रही है, और डाटाबेस के लिए जरूरी क्या है कि जितना उसका प्रयोग करेंगे उतने ही एक्यूरेसी लेवल और बढ़ेगा। आज की डेट में ये 75 से 80% है, हम इसको 90%, 95%, 98% करना चाहते हैं। इसलिए वैसे हमारे पास और भी टूल्स है, IIT बॉम्बे का भी एक टूल है, गूगल भी है, माइक्रोसॉफ्ट भी है, लेकिन इसमें लगातार सारी भाषाओं के शब्द इकट्ठे हो रहे हैं और लगातार इससे एक्यूरेसी बढ़ती जा रही है। इसलिए इसमें भी ट्रांसलेशन बारे में बात कर सकते हैं। एग्जामिनेशन लोकल लैंग्वेजेस, पेपर आप बनाइए, कम से कम आंसर बुक्स लिख रहा है लिखने दीजिए, उसका कॉपी इवेल्युएट करने दीजिए, उसको उस आधार पर वंचित मत करिए सर उसने अंग्रेजी में जवाब नहीं दिया। मैंने अभी बताया 11% लोग ही तो अंग्रेजी में जवाब दे सकते हैं, हम बाकी 89% को पहले रिजेक्ट कर दे रहे हैं। ऐसा क्यों कर रहे हैं? इवेल्युएट कराइए, किताबें मत दीजिए, कोई बात नहीं। वो कहता किताबें नहीं चाहिए, हमें केवल परीक्षा में आंसर्स लिखने की अनुमति दीजिए। जॉब्स, निश्चित रूप से उसमें प्राथमिकता, और उस पर शायद अभी शास्त्री जी कुछ बोल भी रहे थे। ये जो डिसिप्लिन है बहुत आसान है। इस पे जो सर्वे हुआ है, जो जानकारियां आई हैं, ये सोशल साइंस के सब्जेक्ट्स है, और ये विभिन्न प्रांतों में देखा गया। लगभग 80% बुक्स उपलब्ध है, लगभग 80% टीचिंग लर्निंग प्रोसेस पढ़ाई जा रही है। हिंदी में पढ़ाई जा रही है, तेलुगु में पढ़ाई जा रही है, मराठी में पढ़ाई जा रही है, सारी मातृभाषाओं से 80% सोशल साइंस के सब्जेक्ट्स में। कॉलेजेस में बहुत ज्यादा है, कॉमर्स में थोड़ा कम है 50%, और साइंस में थोड़ी दिक्कत है। कुछ सब्जेक्ट्स में बहुत ही दिक्कत है, जैसे कंप्यूटर साइंस में बहुत दिक्कत आ रही है। तो ये 50, 80 और 20 है। ये हमने कुछ स्टैटिस्टिक्स कलेक्ट किया था और उसके आधार पर इस स्टैटिस्टिक्स को आपके सामने बताया है। अगर ये 20% क्यों नहीं है, ये 50% ही क्यों कॉमर्स में है, साइंस में क्यों 20% है? क्या हम लोगों का दायित्व तो नहीं है कि हम लोग इस दिशा में भी आगे बढ़ें और हमारे जो बच्चे हैं, जो हमारे देश का फ्यूचर है, उनको हम लोग इसमें बेहतर ढंग से ट्रेन कर सकें? हम लोगों ने ये भी प्रयास किया। पब्लिशर्स, इंटरनेशनल पब्लिशर्स, UGC चेयरमैन ने खुद बात किया उन लोगों से, इंटरनेशनल पब्लिशर्स, नेशनल पब्लिशर्स से, कि वे इस दिशा में कैसे सहयोग करेंगे। उन्होंने कहा मैं बिल्कुल आपके साथ हूं, आप लोग काम करिए। हमारे पास स्टैटिस्टिक्स उपलब्ध है कि वर्तमान में कितने लोग, ये कहते हैं साहब हम किताब तो छाप देंगे, लिख देंगे, छापने वाला कोई नहीं। ये एक्चुअल में उपलब्ध पब्लिशर्स हैं, ये उसकी सूची हमने आप लोगों से एकत्र की है। असमीज देख लीजिए, बंगाली देख लीजिए, गुजराती देख लीजिए, हिंदी देख लीजिए, मतलब पब्लिशर ही, हिंदी तो हमने छोड़ ही दिया क्योंकि हिंदी में तो काफी पब्लिशर्स उपलब्ध हैं। हर जगह पर आप पब्लिशर्स उपलब्ध होंगे। ये लंबी लिस्ट है, इसमें आप देखेंगे कि पब्लिशर ही पब्लिशर हर भाषा में उपलब्ध है। ये बात हम लोग कहते हैं कि सब पब्लिशर उपलब्ध नहीं इसलिए हम लोग लिखेंगे नहीं, ऐसी कोई बात नहीं है। वर्तमान में जो धरातल पर स्थितियां है, केवल उनको ये पता लगना चाहिए कि अब बच्चों को मातृभाषा में पढ़ने के अवसर मिलेंगे। आप पुस्तक लिखिए, छपेंगे। और कई यूनिवर्सिटीज ने इस पे प्रयास भी शुरू किया है। हर जगह एक ग्रंथ एकेडमी खुली हुई हर प्रांत में, वो भी उसको सपोर्ट करती है, उस तरह के इनिशिएटिव्स को। ये देखिए ओवरऑल हमने एक स्ट्रक्चर का कोशिश किया था कि जो बेसिक सब्जेक्ट्स है ये केवल बीएससी और बीए और बीकॉम के लिए ही हैं। इसमें हमने देखा किस भाषा में, हर भाषा में बुक्स है कि नहीं है, और हर भाषा में किसकी क्या स्थिति है। तो वही ओवरऑल जो सर्वे है, जो हमारे पास जो स्टैटिस्टिक्स है, उसके आधार पर वही साइंस के सब्जेक्ट टेक्स्ट बुक्स उपलब्ध नहीं है, कॉमर्स में थोड़ी कम है और सोशल साइंस में काफी संख्या में है। ये सेकेंडरी डाटा है, कोई प्रामाणिक डाटा नहीं, लेकिन फिर भी हमने कोशिश किया है, हमारी समिति ने कोशिश किया है कि इसमें हम आप लोगों से भी निवेदन करने वाले हैं कि आप लोग इसके बारे में जो एग्जैक्ट डाटा आपके पास है तो वो हम लोग उपलब्ध कराएं, जिससे हम इस आधार पर गैप्स को आइडेंटिफाई करें। क्योंकि सर ने एक बहुत बड़ी बात कही कि हम 100% क्यों नहीं कर रहे हैं, ये आधा आधा क्यों सोच रहे हैं। ये देखिए, ये जो न्यूज़पेपर कटिंग्स हैं, बार बार यही बात कहते हैं कि हमें इस प्रक्रिया को आगे बढ़ाना है। हम स्नातक की पढ़ाई 12 भारतीय भाषाओं में होगी, बीकॉम बीएससी किताबें भारतीय भाषाओं में होगी। हम तो आजकल एमबीए की बात कह रहे हैं, इंजीनियरिंग की बात कर रहे हैं, मेडिकल की बात कर रहे हैं। तो ये सब तो बहुत छोटी बातें हैं। अभी हमने एक बात बताई थी कि कर्नाटका सरकार ने पहली बार, यूजीसी चेयरमैन ने एक चिट्ठी लिखी थी सारे गवर्नर और सारे चीफ मिनिस्टर्स को। तो कर्नाटका सरकार के गवर्नर साहब ने तुरंत उसको संज्ञान में लिया और एक बैठक बुलाई सारे वाइस चांसलर्स की और उनको निर्देश दिया कि इस पर तुरंत कार्रवाई शुरू करें। अगर हम लोग ऊपर लेवल पर, हायर लेवल पर निर्णय ले लेंगे तो यह जो प्रक्रिया है इसके बेहतर परिणाम प्राप्त होंगे। क्या करना चाहिए इस पर मैं कुछ नहीं बोलूंगा, क्योंकि हम लोग सब जानते हैं कि हमें आगे क्या करना चाहिए। फिर भी कुछ बातें जो इन जेनरिक है उसको बता रहे हैं। कम से कम एडवाइजरी ग्रुप और वर्किंग ग्रुप्स तो हम लोग तुरंत बना ही सकते हैं, स्टेट लेवल पर भी, यूनिवर्सिटी लेवल पर भी, कॉलेज लेवल पर भी और डिसिप्लिन लेवल पर भी। हर डिसिप्लिन में आप कहाँ का गैप्स है, कौन से ऑथर्स उपलब्ध हैं, किन ऑथर से हमें ट्रांसलेशन कराना है, किन ऑथर से ओरिजिनल टेक्स्ट बुक लिखवाना है। और हर यूनिवर्सिटी के पास इसकी संख्या काफी है। और हमारे पास जो स्टेट यूनिवर्सिटीज हैं उनकी संख्या बहुत है और संख्या छात्रों की संख्या भी बहुत है। कॉलेजेस अभी सुबह ही बता रहे थे 45,000 कॉलेजेस हैं, 1100 यूनिवर्सिटीज हैं। सब मिल करके अपने अपने क्षेत्र में देखना शुरू करें कि कहाँ कहाँ वो उस गैप को फिलअप कर सकते हैं। सर्वे कर लीजिए, आइडेंटिफाई गैप एरियाज के लिए। नेशनल लेवल मूवमेंट, ये हमारा एक आंदोलन है। जैसे सर शास्त्री जी हम सबको प्रोत्साहित कर रहे थे, बता रहे थे कि कितना महत्वपूर्ण चीज है, राष्ट्रीय गौरव का विषय है। अपनी भाषा में पढ़ना, अपनी भाषा में पढ़ाना, अपनी भाषा में टेक्स्ट बुक लिखना, अपनी भाषा के लिए पुस्तकों का अनुवाद करना, ये राष्ट्र के लिए आपका विशेष प्रयास है। इस अभियान में हम सब मिलकर क्यों नहीं जुड़ सकते। ट्रांसलेशन के बारे में कहा गया है, अनुवादनी इन सब के बारे में पहले ही बता चुके। ट्रांसलेशन के प्रमोट करिए, ट्रांसलेशन को डिस्करेज मत करिए, जहां कहीं भी आवश्यकता पड़े ट्रांसलेशन करिए। और टेक्स्ट मटेरियल्स के अलावा वीडियोज हों उनको भी प्रमोट करिए। खाली किताब लिखना ये जरूरी नहीं है, स्पीच टू स्पीच ट्रांसलेशन हो। एम्पावरिंग टीचर्स विद ट्रांसलेशन टूल्स, टूल्स कहाँ कहाँ उपलब्ध है, ट्रांसलेशन टूल मैंने सुनते हैं लेकिन कहाँ उपलब्ध है, हम एम्पावर कर सकते हैं। बहुत सस्ते में उपलब्ध है। हमने तो कंटिजेंसी से लोगों को कहा कि तुम लोग खरीद लो, 2000-3000 रुपए में उसका लाइसेंस मिल जा रहा है 1 साल के लिए। लोग रखे हुए हैं, अभी प्रयोग नहीं कर रहे हैं, करेंगे। अवेयरनेस हो गई, अब आगे निश्चित रूप से कार्य उस पर आगे होगा। डिजिटल रिपोजिटरी ऑफ ई रिसोर्सेज इन ईच रीजनल लैंग्वेज, इन ईच मदर टंग। धीरे धीरे उसके आधार पर उसको बेहतर ढंग से उसकी क्वालिटी इंप्रूव करके अच्छा गया। और पब्लिशर्स को इनवाइट करना और बहुत सी बातें जो हम सब मिलकर सोचे। हम लोग को इस दिशा में आगे बढ़ना है, मिल करके काम करना है। और ये जो यूजीसी है अब लगातार इस दिशा में प्रयास कर रही है कि सकारात्मक कदम हम सभी वाइस चांसलर्स मिलकर के उठाए। बहुत बहुत धन्यवाद, बहुत बहुत आभार।
Thank you, sir. Now, may I request Professor R.K. Mittal, Vice Chancellor of Chaudhry Bansalal University, to kindly address the gathering on entrepreneurship initiatives in India.
आप सबको सादर प्रणाम। मैं सबसे पहले माननीय डॉक्टर पंकज मित्तल जी को धन्यवाद देता हूं कि आपने उद्यमशीलता के ऊपर, एंटरप्रेन्योरशिप के ऊपर एक ऐसे इनिशिएटिव जिसका नाम स्वावलंबी भारत अभियान है, उसके बारे में आप सबके समक्ष उसको रखने का समय दिया। और आज सुबह माननीय शिक्षा मंत्री असम ने कई बातों का जिक्र किया, जिसमें आत्मनिर्भर भारत, स्वरोजगार, सेल्फ एम्प्लॉयमेंट, एंटरप्रेन्योरशिप, उद्यमशीलता जैसे बातों का जिक्र किया जो आज की आवश्यकता है। आज यदि हम देखें तो भारत की यदि कोई नंबर 1 समस्या है वो है बेरोजगारी की। लगभग 1 करोड़ युवक रोजगार के लिए लेबर मार्केट में एंटर कर जाते हैं और उन सबको एब्जॉर्ब नहीं किया जा सकता। यदि हम पूरी की पूरी सरकार की जितनी ऑर्गेनाइज सेक्टर है, केवल 7% ऑर्गेनाइज सेक्टर में नौकरियां मिलती हैं। 92% आर इन दी इनफॉर्मल सेक्टर, अनऑर्गेनाइज सेक्टर। और यदि हम गवर्नमेंट की देखें, सेंटर और स्टेट की, तो मुझे लगता है 2.5 से 3% जो जॉब्स हैं वो गवर्नमेंट सेक्टर में है। तो इससे एक बात बिल्कुल क्लियर हो जाती है कि युवाओं को, जिसकी हम पॉपुलेशन डिविडेंड की बात सुबह कही, लगभग 37 करोड़ युवक, इन युवाओं को सही प्रयोग इनका हो, उपयोग हो, क्षमताओं का इनकी, इसके लिए आवश्यक है कि उनके मानसिकता में बदलाव लाया जाए। और बदलाव यह है कि वो दे शुड बी जॉब प्रोवाइडर, नॉट जॉब सीकर। मंत्री जी ने सुबह बताया कि यदि हम बच्चों को, युवाओं को, शिक्षा को इस तरीके से तैयार करेंगे कि वो अपना काम करें, उद्योग लगाएं और उससे फिर बाकी को भी एम्प्लॉयमेंट दें, तभी जाके इस समस्या का हल निकल सकता है। इसी बात को केंद्र में रखकर लगभग 26 ऑर्गेनाइजेशंस, जिसमें परसिस्टेंट सिस्टम, वकरंगी और जागृति मिशन, स्वदेशी जागरण मंच और अन्य संगठन, 26 के करीब संगठनों ने मिलकर यह निर्णय लिया कि क्यों ना सामूहिक रूप से एक प्रयत्न किया जाए जिसमें कि भारत को पुनः समृद्धि के रास्ते पर लगाया जाए। हम सब जानते हैं कि अंग्रेजी शासन से पहले लगभग 30 से 33% तक जो पूरा विश्व का उत्पादन था वो भारत से पैदा होता था। भारत वास्तव में एक छोटे छोटे लघु, कुटीर, उद्यमशीलों का देश, उद्यमिता का देश रहा है। और वहां पर उस समय में कोई बेरोजगारी की कोई ऐसा सच प्रॉब्लम नहीं थी। भारत को समृद्धि पर लाना, अर्थव्यवस्था को रोजगार युक्त बनाना, अर्थव्यवस्था को समावेशी बनाना, पर्यावरण हितैषी बनाना, एनवायरमेंटल फ्रेंडली, इन सब उद्देश्यों को ध्यान में रखकर एक स्वावलंबी भारत अभियान चलाया गया है। और जिसके जो केंद्र है वो है स्वरोजगार और उद्यमशीलता। इसके अंतर्गत पूरे भारत के जितने भी जिले हैं उनमें एक जिला रोजगार सृजन केंद्रों की स्थापना की जा रही है। इस प्रयास में सभी लगे हुए हैं। विशेषकर इसमें भूमिका जो यूनिवर्सिटीज और कॉलेजेस की रहने वाली है, क्योंकि इसके 4 मुख्य बिंदु हैं। एक, डिसेंट्रलाइजेशन, विकेंद्रीकरण। हम सब जानते हैं कि भारत इतना बड़ा देश है, अलग अलग राज्यों की अलग अलग परिस्थितियां हैं, अलग अलग वहाँ का रिसोर्स बेस है, और आत्मनिर्भर यदि भारत बनाना है तो उसके लिए गांवों तक, जैसे सुबह बताया गया, जाना पड़ेगा, पूरे राज्यों तक जाना पड़ेगा, वहाँ के संसाधनों को ध्यान में रखकर जाना पड़ेगा, और हमारे विश्वविद्यालयों को, महाविद्यालयों को भी अपनी शोध भी उसी हिसाब से करनी पड़ेगी, ताकि वहाँ की परिस्थितियों के हिसाब से बच्चों को रोजगार दिलाया जा सके और छोटे छोटे उद्योग धंधे परिस्थितियों के हिसाब से शुरू किए जा सकें। तो एक है विकेंद्रीकरण और दूसरा है सहकारिता, कोऑपरेशन। हम सब जानते हैं कि जैसे आनंद का एक्सपेरिमेंट हम सबके समक्ष है, ऐसा एक्सपेरिमेंट है जो नॉन एक्सप्लॉयटेटिव है, जिसमें सब मिलकर काम करते हैं, और भारत की एक ऐसी संस्कृति भी ऐसी है कि हम सब मिलकर सामूहिक रूप से इन चीजों को टैकल करते हैं। तो दूसरा है सहकारिता, और तीसरा है उद्यमशीलता, जिसकी मैं बात कर ही रहा हूं, और चौथा है स्वदेशी, कि अपने प्रोडक्ट, अपने संसाधन, जैसे कि कोविड में भी हमें पता चला कि हम जब पूरा का पूरा वर्ल्ड में डिसरप्शन था, तब लोकल रिसोर्सेज को आधार बनाकर हम प्रगति की, और न केवल अपने देश में इस कोविड से निपटारा पाया, बल्कि दूसरे देशों को भी इसमें मदद की। इन सब उद्देश्यों को ध्यान में रखकर स्वदेश ये स्वावलंबी भारत अभियान शुरू किया गया है। मेरा आपसे आग्रह ये है कि हमारे यहाँ यूनिवर्सिटी में भी एंटरप्रेन्योरशिप सेल पहले से भी चलते हैं, तो मैं चाहूंगा कि इन एंटरप्रेन्योरशिप सेल को एक अच्छे तरीके से सुदृढ़ किया जाए, एक इफेक्टिव किया जाए, वहां पर लोकल स्तर की स्टडी की जाए, और बच्चों में एक मानसिकता में बदलाव लाया जाए कि वो जॉब प्रोवाइडर बने, गवर्नमेंट की जॉब्स के पीछे ना भागे। यदि ये मानसिकता हम कर पाते हैं तो मुझे लगता है कि इस अभियान का उद्देश्य हम हासिल करने में हम सफल होंगे। इस जो कार्यक्रम है पूरा, इसके केंद्र में है जिला रोजगार सृजन केंद्र, या कहें रोजगार सृजन केंद्र, और उद्यमशीलता की जो बात कही, 21 अगस्त को विश्व उद्यमशीलता दिवस मनाया जाता है। इसके बारे में डिटेल में प्रोफेसर सोमनाथ सचदेवा जी आप सबको बताएंगे। धन्यवाद।
Thank you, sir. May I now request Professor Somnath Sachdeva, Vice Chancellor, Kurukshetra University, to kindly address the gathering.
Present on the dais, Professor Krishna Shastri ji, Professor Nageshwar Rao, Professor R.K. Mittal, and all distinguished persons sitting in the hall. First of all, I wish to express my thanks to Dr. Pankaj Mittal for giving us this opportunity to talk to you on this very important aspect of basically it's the theme of this session also, promotion of Indian languages and entrepreneurship initiatives. First, I'll speak about the promotion of Indian languages in my university. I am from Kurukshetra University. It is oldest and largest state university of Haryana. We are running more than 200 academic programs with 49 departments, 15,000 students on the campus, and almost 2.5 lakh students in our affiliated colleges. We are among the first few universities of the country that have implemented NEP, and probably the only university that has implemented NEP in its UGC programs with all provisions of NEP. और इसमें हमने जो इंडियन लैंग्वेजेस को प्रमोट किया NEP में, जो हमने UG प्रोग्राम्स में लगाया, उसके अलावा we started with our LLB course, wherein we gave this option to the students to write their exams in Hindi as well. And we got very good response, and encouraged by that, now we have implemented this provision of writing down answers to the questions in the final examinations in Hindi as well, across all the programs, including engineering and sciences. And believe it, we have got very good response from the society as well as from the students. So that is something that I wanted to share as far as the promotion of Indian languages is concerned. Second aspect about which Professor Rajkumar Mittal has already spoken, that in whole of the country at the moment, Swalambhi Bharat Abhiyan, with the cooperation from almost 30 organizations, is being taken up. These are social organizations, religious as well as educational organizations. And Kurukshetra University is one of such organizations that is associated with the Swalambhi Bharat Abhiyan. Under this Abhiyan, Rozgar Srijan Kendra, employment generation centers are being set up in every district by these organizations only. These are not government centers. Okay. Now, what are the functions of these centers? I'll be speaking about that. 5 or 6 main functions are being served by these centers. In Haryana, we have got 22 districts, and we have set up these Rozgar Srijan Kendra in all the 22 districts, either in university or some college where the university is not available, or even outside the university or the college. And these are catering to not only to the students who are studying in universities, to all students of the area. These are serving the purpose of, first is to inculcate in the minds of our students that they can become entrepreneurs. Because most of our jobs that we are getting is coming from self-employment. Almost 92% of the jobs. Employment is coming from self-employment. So it is very, it is essential that entrepreneurship need to be promoted. So this spirit that I will not be a job seeker, but I will be a job provider. So for this, the students are being interacted with successful entrepreneur of the area, maybe from that institution or otherwise, and they are being made to interact with the persons who can help them become entrepreneurs. So that is one thing. Second is, there are many organizations that are doing the skilling and the entrepreneurship in that particular area, in that district. Just do the networking with these kind of organizations. So for example, in Kurukshetra, PNB is the lead bank. They are giving skill training in almost 40 kind of, say, the areas where the person can become entrepreneurs, starting from a small shop to the computer networking. They are running the courses from 6 days to 40 days, and these are fully funded. Even these stay arrangements are made by the government, but they do not get the takers. In the universities and colleges, there is information deficit about these kind of the schemes that are being already run by these organizations, maybe the government, maybe the private kind of organizations. So simply by doing the networking, this information deficit is being removed, and it is giving us wonderful results as well. There are various government schemes. In Haryana, if I talk about put together Government of India schemes and the Government of Haryana scheme, there are more than 400 such schemes available. In many of these schemes, subsidies to the extent of 80–85% is available if you are starting your own enterprise. Again, this information deficit is being removed by these kind of the Rozgar Srijan Kendras. Small kind of jobs that are available in the area, part-time kind of jobs, under the process earn while learn. It is seen that all successful entrepreneurs, they started earning very early in their life. You can take the example of many of them, you'll find most of them started earning very early. So once a student starts earning something, in that case, you can see the confidence level of the students that gets increased manifold, and he is able to take up a job or start his own enterprise soon. And in NEP, there is provision of internship. Whenever the exiting is taking place, say 3-year program with multiple entry exit, whenever the student is exiting, before that, internship is compulsory with the industry or with the organization that is working in the area. And in the beginning, it is going to be very difficult to provide internship to all these kind of students. So these Rozgar Srijan Kendras, they are helping in the arrangement of internship with the field organizations. So these are some of the areas wherein these employment generation centers can really help in providing the proper kind of skilling, the entrepreneurship kind of information, and wherever possible, some kind of skilling and the entrepreneurship training courses are also arranged by themselves only by these Rozgar Srijan Kendras. So this is all about these kendras in whole of the country. Out of 740 districts, 400 districts have already been provided with these kind of the kendras with the help of these 30 organizations that have been named by my previous speaker. Purpose of स्वावलंबी भारत अभियान, अगर इसको एक लाइन में कहना हो तो रोजगार युक्त और गरीबी मुक्त भारत का निर्माण. With this pious objective in mind, this Swavlambi Bharat Abhiyan is being taken up in whole of the country, and as pointed out by Professor Rajkumar Mittal also, August 21st is World Entrepreneurs Day. We are in the habit of celebrating different kind of world days. So this World Entrepreneur Day is the day that is going to decide the future of our youth. So I would request that our universities can play a great role on this particular day. We should try to arrange some kind of talk, some seminars, some kind of skill training, some kind of entrepreneurship promotional talks for our students in our universities. So thank you very much. Once again, I express my thanks to AIU and the USTM for providing us this opportunity to interact with you all. Thank you very much. Jai Hind.
Thank you, sir. This brings to the end of the session, and I thank Professor Chamu Krishna Shastri, Chairman, Bharatiya Bhasha Samiti, Government of India, Professor Nageshwar Rao, Vice Chancellor, Indira Gandhi National Open University, Professor R.K. Mittal, Vice Chancellor Chaudhry Bansilal University, and Professor Somnath Sachdeva, Vice Chancellor, Kurukshetra University, to chair the panel. Now, may I request Dr. Ramapani Madam to kindly propose the vote of thanks.
धन्यवाद डॉक्टर मोना. इस सत्र के साथ ही हम आज के सारे एकेडमिक सत्रों के समापन की ओर पहुंच गए हैं. इस सत्र में दो महत्वपूर्ण विषयों पर चर्चा हुई है, जैसे कि आप सब लोगों ने सुना है. पहला विषय है भारतीय भाषाओं के प्रचार प्रयास एवं उनके महत्व, और दूसरा विषय है भारत में आत्मनिर्भर होने के लिए उद्यमशीलता के लिए किए गए प्रयास. मैं भारतीय विश्वविद्यालय संघ एवं यूएसटीएम की ओर से प्रोफेसर चामू कृष्ण शास्त्री जी और प्रोफेसर नागेश्वर राव जी को उनके वक्तव्य के लिए और उनके प्रयासों के लिए बहुत सराहना करती हूँ, साधुवाद देती हूँ, धन्यवाद देती हूँ सर. बहुत हम लोग सबने बहुत आनंद लिया, और सभी कुलपति आपके सुझावों का पर अमल करेंगे, इस चीज की आशा करते हैं. और उद्यमशीलता की ओर डॉक्टर प्रोफेसर मित्तल और प्रोफेसर सोमनाथ के प्रयासों की भी सराहना करते हैं, और भारतीय विश्वविद्यालय संघ और यूएसटीएम की ओर से आपको भी धन्यवाद देते हैं. मैं सारे कुलपति गण को धन्यवाद देती हूं भारतीय विश्वविद्यालय संघ की तरफ से और यूएसटीएम की तरफ से कि अभी तक बैठ के विषयों पे चर्चा किए हैं. धन्यवाद. और अभी हम छोटा सा टी ब्रेक लेंगे, और नेक्स्ट दिन भर की थकान को दूर करने के लिए एक एंटरटेनमेंट प्रोग्राम ऑर्गेनाइज किया यूएसटीएम ने, उसका आनंद लेंगे. थोड़ी सी चाय पी के आके यहीं बैठेंगे, कल्चरल प्रोग्राम अटेंड करेंगे, और उसके बाद डिनर करके फिर हम जाएंगे. कल सुबह 9:30 बजे हमारा सेशन शुरू हो जाएंगे, तो प्लीज आप सबसे रिक्वेस्ट है कि कल सुबह 9:30 बजे इसी सभागार में उपस्थित होंगे. धन्यवाद. धन्यवाद.
We take a short tea break, and I request everyone, all the honorable vice chancellors and their spouses, to please assemble again back in the auditorium to enjoy the cultural evening, which will depict the northeastern states. So I request everybody to kindly assemble again for the showcasing of the Northeast culture soon after the tea break. And tomorrow we will begin with the technical sessions sharp at 9:30. So I now again request everybody to kindly take a tea break, short tea break, and kindly come back again to be with us for the cultural evening. Request all the hall management volunteers to kindly come forward to help in the cultural program setting up. Request all the hall management volunteers to kindly come forward to assist in the hall cultural program setting up. An announcement, a credit card belonging to Dr. Dilip Kumar Patnaik. An important announcement, the credit card belonging to Dr. Dilip Kumar Patnaik has been found. So, sir, if you are here, kindly send your escort. And a pair of glasses have been found. It is available in the backstage. Anybody who has forgotten a pair of glasses may please send your escort to collect it from the backstage. An important announcement, request all the faculty escorts of our Honorable Vice Chancellors to kindly collect the felicitation items from the backstage. Request all the faculty escorts of the Honorable Vice Chancellors to kindly collect the felicitation items from the backstage.
All the volunteers of stage and hall management, all the volunteers of hall management, I repeat, kindly assemble in the front side of the hall. All the volunteers for hall management, kindly assemble in the front side of the hall.
Request all the faculty escorts of the respective honorable vice chancellors to kindly come to the backstage and collect the felicitation items. Escorts of the respective honorable vice chancellors who have chaired the different sessions, kindly come to the backstage to collect the felicitation items. Escorts of the honorable vice chancellors and members of EPICS bodies who had chaired the different sessions, kindly come to the backstage and collect the felicitation items. Faculty escorts, kindly note only those vice chancellors and head of EPICS bodies. Escorts of only those vice chancellors and head of EPICS bodies, kindly come to the backstage and collect the felicitation items.
Hello.
এইবিলাক কৰি নাথাকিবা চিধা আহি মাইক্ৰফোন লগাই দিবা
Hello.
Hello, check. Hello.
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 Hello, chicks.
Hello. Chick. Hello. Reverb develop. Hello.